sure. We're always looking for more friends. Okay, we're always excited to meet more new people. So there's that. But yeah, how are you all doing?
Pretty
Doing
good.
great.
Great. Let's start talking about things. um. Yeah. So what's up? We're gonna do free discussion first. So that's the thing that's gonna happen.
Well, do we
So
wait for other people? Because I sort of have a topic ish or something that I think is maybe philosophically interesting.
okay. What?
Jonah Hill. No, I'm kidding.
And their
Well-
filmography and rating best to worst.
This isn't the crowd for this because it's extremely non-black. But there is. What are you looking at me for? But I just discovered, and because I'm not on social media like that, but like there is a basketball player who had hired a porn star for for sex, just like to be like their usual squeeze, right? Apparently, like it's in the messages, like, "Hey, how much to hire you for this and this, right?" And this porn star, like recently, like their professional relationship fell apart. And this porn star has freaked out, and she has been like tweeting like constantly for weeks about it, like manically tweeting and like threatening this guy. So the porn star's name is Mariah Mills, and the a basketball guy's name is Zion something. You guys, none of you guys are even sports fans. I don't think anyone of you are a sports fan here. Yeah, so yeah, this isn't the crowd for this. Like I said, what'd you say?
I watch basketball.
Okay, do you know what I'm talking about then?
No.
His name is okay. All right. Well, yeah. Like I said, this isn't the crowd for this. I guess not. But it's an interesting case because she seems to be like blackmailing him. She's like releasing DMs between them, and then she's like it's like unclear what she wants. She might want like a continuation of their relationship, and or
like professionally, or they're upset that they're just not getting paid anymore.
It's not clear if they had caught feelings. This person, like she had admitted on like a talk show that she doesn't have friends. Like period. She just doesn't. That doesn't happen for her, right? And this guy. So she's like 32, right? And this guy is 22. And they have been doing this for years. And
hopefully not too many years given the ages.
We don't know. I don't know when his NBA career started.
Okay.
So I don't know, like maybe. Like I don't know. And hold on, let me drag in. Okay, no, everyone's here. Yeah, so I don't know what that situation is, but now she's saying that like if I don't get money, like I'm gonna drop sex tapes. So she's like extorting them, like on Twitter, like for everyone to see, and like it's like thousands of messages. Like she just went on for weeks at a time. The show that I was watching that like talked about this like was aired 2 weeks ago, so I'm not sure if it's still happening. But she went on for at least 2 weeks of just like nonstop tweeting about this guy. Like you just wake up and then just start tweeting about like that all her feelings.
I have heard all about this. Yeah, no, I know the yeah. You were talking and it all sort of fucking I fucking clicked where she's crazy. This woman's crazy. Yeah. What a nightmare. Holy shit.
Like, oh my god. And the show I was watching that like broke this down for me. It was an interesting discussion because like most people were like looking at this as a joke, as like, okay, like this woman is falling apart. It's funny in the car crash sense. And then we get to see people's dirty laundry. But like, they brought up, well, if this was in reverse and a man was doing this to a woman, right? like just spamming this and then threatening that I'm going to drop sex tapes and I don't get money, all right? That would have been done. Like, there's no way this goes on for 2 weeks. There's no way that authorities or something doesn't happen, right? Someone steps in with power against this individual. And also they brought up like, like what would happen? Like if people still think this is funny, what would happen if this basketball player decided like, this embarrassment is so deep, I'm going to jump off a building, which is a thing that happens. And the other way around, that this lady just like freaks the fuck out and decides to end herself.
Well, like, I don't know how the NBA or most sports organizations operate, but like, does the NBA have any sort of rules or regulations about hiring long-term sex workers or anything like that? Or
they
like,
don't because they shouldn't. Like, and why would they? And I don't think they care. And they know.
But like, so
fuck the prostitute.
Some of the tweets are funny though. You have to admit, some of them are a little bit funny.
Doesn't make it okay, Lactoid.
It doesn't make it okay. But the
is there some sort of, I don't know for sure, but like, is there some sort of like code of conduct of like, hey, this like breaches our code of conduct of like, just like for some employment, there is like a code of conduct and like, yeah, that like can be carried out into like your personal life.
Would you want that to be the case?
No, not necessarily. I'm just asking like if that exists of like.
I don't know. I'm not an NBA dude.
I can give an example, a Canadian example of like a teacher was just fired because they had an OnlyFans and it violated sort of the code of conduct laid out.
Didn't she post pictures from in the classroom though?
No. As far as I know, she did not. Like
I remember a story where they did that.
She used a pseudonym.
Sure she did. Or at least there's a story similar to that.
There was a similar story.
Okay, wait. I want to clarify. Are you following Canadian news, Lactoid?
I don't know if this was Canada or America. All I know is
are you talking about the person that had like the enormous like fake breasts? Is that what you're referring to?
Okay. Why is it big news that Lactoid follows this country's news? Like, why is this all of a sudden like
it's all coming together now? I'll post in the Discord chat.
Managed to find the same news story. I'm not able to find anything about it being anything recorded in there. They only chose to fire her after she said that she wouldn't shut it down. So it'd be really very strange if she did record things in there and they were like, "Well, we won't fire you."
There was a similar story then.
Based off of the story, it seems like she like made a concerted effort to like have it like compartmentalized or separated. Like they didn't use the real name. There was a pseudonym, and like and to be more specific, they were an education assistant.
Yeah. Sorry, guys, that the screen was off center for a bit. I didn't realize that until just now, but I recentered it so everyone can be seen. But yeah, but I hear you. A code of conduct. I think they probably have a code of conduct. Because I know they have one for like domestic violence or something, right? Like that's a reason why I think you can get kicked out. At least
if they were beating a prostitute, that's a bridge too far.
Yeah, but again, so far I don't know. Like from my understanding of the story is shallow. So is that like they just had a professional relationship and he was like hitting this girl, hitting this lady up, and they had been just doing it back and forth. And she's got a lot of dirt on this guy as like what he likes and apparently sex tapes. I think it's interesting though that like when it like I think something that's interesting about this is that like he's such a young kid. I don't know if he came out of high school or if he came out of college. My feeling is that maybe high school he was drafted. I don't know. But like he needs a mentor. This guy looks like, right? Like he needs someone to tell him, hey, like this is not how you
need a mentor, actually, but
operate. But even I mean, the lady, she just needs like a friend that would like stop. I didn't realize Casimir was not in the chat. 1 second. He needs a friend to tell him like this isn't how you operate, and like it's not really necessary to hire a prostitute. Like he is making millions of dollars apparently, right? He's extremely wealthy. And like if he wanted a woman on his own terms, right, where he could just dictate terms, then that's like any of the groupies that show up, right? Any of the hundreds of groupies that like throw themselves at him. He could have had the exact same thing, and just said like, "Hey, these are my terms for my relationship. I can, fuck who I want. I will have you. Well, when I deign to, right? And women would have accepted it. They would have been happy to be
paying
close
her a lot, by the way. He essentially.
I mean, there might have been maybe some sort of like sexual
that's what he did,
or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Did you mention how she got his name tattooed on her face?
I mean, what? I didn't. No, she got his name.
Yeah. So she's actually like out there. So when the whole thing happened,
okay, well, if he doesn't recognize that as a red flag, then
no, this was after. This was after. So basically, what happened was he had her on retainer and was paying her just an absurd amount of money, and then he'd fly in and like meet her or whatever, and then it came out. She was having. He was gonna have a kid. With somebody else, and then she lost it and like started making just like tweets about how he's fat now, about how he's bad at basketball, about how like she baby trapped him, about how you could have been happy with me, but now you're going to be miserable. She got a tattoo of his name on her face, like actually just wild.
Someone in my YouTube chat, shout out to our YouTube chat, says that she says she's pregnant with his baby. Yeah, amazing. Like the fuck. Guys, I don't Zion Williamson is his name.
Yep.
And like it's interesting. But again, this isn't unfortunately crap. I wish I had more details for you. But it's something I guess we could explore like the general issue of like how men are treated when it comes to these types of crises, right? Where like their pain and their shame is like not taken seriously, like by society in general. That might be something we can explore. Before we do that, though, we're waiting on one other person to show up. I don't know if they'll be here anytime soon, but okay. Hello all, this is Every Roundtable. Thanks for being here, much appreciated. If you're just finding this channel, hit that follow button if you're on Twitch, and the subscribe button if you're on YouTube. We really appreciate you being here. We are going to have, I think, a really interesting discussion. We're going to talk about like French immigration, or European immigration in general, in the second half. Before then, I want to have like a free discussion with these guys and see where they're at and different topics that they might want to discuss. Okay, I'm going to introduce them quickly. We have my friend Lactoid. Lactoid, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this. You can find me at Lactoid TV, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Thanks.
Okay. We have Casimir back with us. Nice to have you here. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Yeah, you can also find me on Twitter, Free Casimir. Just enjoying the circus.
Enjoying the circus, okay. Corey Campbell, one of our trusty guys, is here with us. How are you?
I'm doing so well, especially for a Monday. Pretty good. And always grateful to be here with these familiar and fine faces. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv CoreyCampbell84. Twitter, Instagram, literally it's Corey Campbell. I cover science and news and politics. Looking forward to getting into it.
Thank you. Tiberius D is here with us. How are you?
I'm a little beat. It's been a long day, not gonna lie. Pleasure to be here as always. Very interested to talk about France and of course this free discussion. Let's see what y'all drag out of the box for me.
Okay, all right, yeah. Next is Synth. Hey Synth, how are you, friend?
Pretty good. I'm Dakota. I go by Synth Online. I have a YouTube channel at the same name there, Synth Sinthe. Can't wait to get right into the meat of these discussions.
Okay, and Sprouticus, I haven't had here such a long time, right? We've been bereft of real American heroes, but we haven't here with us again. How are you, friend?
I'm doing good. Glad I was able to make it. And no, it sounds like it's going to be a fun time. Looking forward to it.
Okay, and finally, Doobie, our Dark Lord and Savior, who also haven't had in weeks, unfortunately, because life is like that. Doobie, how are you?
I'm doing well.
All right, yeah. So, before I like maybe take us down that direction about like talking about like male pain, which is a discussion we don't really talk about on this channel, right? I've talked about this on, there's like not on this channel, on this program. We do it on Abe, like All Black Everything. We talked about it there, but that's not the type of topic we've ever touched here. So that might be interesting. But do you guys have something you want to discuss? Anything burning?
Well, maybe not burning, but I think, at least in my mind, it could be totally wrong, because maybe my interests are pretty niche. But so I was covering yesterday on my own stream, a little interesting case study of like pretty much there's a lot of psychedelic research taking place. Thankfully, a lot more research taking place. And there's an interesting case study where like this group of researchers they were doing a larger study on ecstasy or MDMA to be more specific. And like one particular patient like stood out, as in like this one particular patient before the study when they were recruited, and like this particular research participant, their intention was basically they were like, looking to make money, and like they were. It turns out that they were like a high level, like basically like white supremacist, like part of an organization high in that organization, a white supremacist. And then like during the course of the study and their experience with MDMA, their political positions shifted. They pretty much came out left leaning. And so at least for me, assuming let's say it pans out or we get to a place of like, hey, we now know how to change someone's political positions through like a pharmaceutical. And we also know how to shift it a certain way. Basically, are we in a position then to like, you should go to your doctor to get a prescription to become left leaning, or like, is there some sort of obligation, or let's say normative world that we get to of like, hey, if you're like some right wing white supremacist, should you undergo psychotherapy or psychedelic therapy for that? And I'll post the case study in the Discord chat because it's really cool.
Cure for libertarianism. Love to see it.
Yeah,
Fuckers are
that's
gonna
what-
put it in the water. That's
I've
coming
got-
next, you bastards.
I've got one as well after we're done with this.
Okay, yeah. I think this might be something we could discuss. Like, well, I don't know. I feel like I already know what all your answers are going to be on this one. But
I
like,
think you do.
oh, you don't? Okay, all right. Well, then I'll ask it. Do you think that it would ever make sense to use drugs or some other means to realign like public behavior? Maybe not even just on political ends, right? Like, let's say we could have tests like and figure out like who exactly is like psychotic, right? Like, and we could do it like from birth or something, or from like young adulthood. And then we could apply some sort of drug or some method, right? Like not torture, but just like some sort of method to realign them. Would that be a good thing for society?
So I'm pretty conflicted about it. And again, I encourage everyone. I posted in the Discord chat to look at it because like it's from pretty much the authors of the original study that they tried to carry out. And there's like firsthand accounts of the individual, the former white supremacist, and they give like during this like MDMA experience, like there was like a whole shift in like how they felt towards the world, and they felt like greater connectedness. And I think they say like pretty much as part of their testimony, like, hey, I have like this. I pretty much moving forward. It's all about love and getting connected with people. And like they sort of like have dropped their white supremacist ways. And yeah, like I obviously see utility in that. I'm obviously biased, but I don't like, I'm hoping to get to a place where we also have alternative ways of changing people's political positions. Like I don't know if the optimal way is through like a pharmaceutical, even if they all turn out to align with me. I think that's why it's like philosophically interesting to me.
Yeah, what do you all
I'm
think?
skeptical immediately. I'm looking at this paper. So this is a guy who was part of a white supremacist organization, apparently. And then he got doxxed, lost his job, lost all of his friends, lost his health. And then now he's saying the MDMA cured him. It's very convenient, right? It's very convenient that now he's fixed and his job should take him back.
Well, no. So you should look at towards the end because there's still challenges that he is facing. Like and also, yes. So and also actually, this I think bleeds into what Prime brought up earlier in terms of like men's pain and their struggles and challenges. Where like yeah, I will also fully admit if there's also stories in let's say the mainstream media that like give a more well maybe not full accounting but like offer other viewpoints because like understandably this made headlines. But like, yes, this was like essentially a disaffected individual or a disaffected man, and they basically looks like they fell down the right wing pipeline. And then as a result of their MDMA experience, unless you want to call them a liar, I have no reason to believe that they're a liar. If you want to
I
say,
think you're the lying is in your framework of who he was.
No, I think it's fine. I think if we should just like take people that we disagree with, put them in a camp, and then expose them to electroshock therapy until they agree with us. I think that's perfectly okay. Actually, I think that's the most acceptable route. I think that anyone that disagrees with me should go get electrical shock therapy until they agree with me.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think that's the
Somebody-
best way forward for America.
We can also give somebody a
there's a-
social credit score, and if it gets too low, they have to take certain pills until it goes up again. So,
I think there's a big difference between.
now you're speaking my language, Lactoid.
I think there's a big difference between somebody having some kind of intense experience with a drug and their views changing because of that, and then being forced out of their views through manipulation or through like torture.
Is there though?
Of course there is. Yeah. The
Yeah,
difference.
those drugs should be available voluntarily, right?
Is the drug
agree.
in and of
Everybody in
itself
agreement
not
on this?
manipulation?
I hope so. The drug
Is the
wouldn't be
drug in and of
manipulation if they
itself
choose
not
to.
manipulation?
No, it's not. So you choosing to have an experience with a drug that is like
You're not
ecstasy
choosing to
or
in this
like
case.
in this
Well, no,
case, you
so
were
he-
choosing to. In
I
this
think
case,
he's
you were
the vi-
choosing to.
Yeah, no. So he's talking about the original situation that Corey brought up.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, it was a total choice for the original person involved. They chose to have this experience with this drug. They were interested in obviously the financial payment, but they understood that when you go in
compensation.
and they understood that when you do drugs, when you do something like ecstasy, you can have a really profound experience with something like ecstasy, or with other more extreme drugs like DMT or like mushrooms. And you can have a shift in your worldview because of this, because it can change a lot of the axioms that you take for granted. And that to me doesn't seem like a bad thing. It would seem bad if somebody was being forced to take drugs against their will, because of that violation of their autonomy. But somebody's choosing to take drugs and the drug has like a profound experience on them. Now, I think that obviously your life experiences are going to lead you to have certain kinds of political dispositions, and having experimenting with your kind of experience is probably good for that.
So from talking with people of this type, I have a hypothesis. Like I don't know this person, I don't know what their background is, but I see like a very common pattern, which is somebody who doesn't have any sort of in-group on their own, and they're experiencing various forms of discrimination in their immediate society for whatever reason, maybe socioeconomic reasons, and then they're presented with an offer to join this cult-like group that provides like an easy answer to all their life's problems. You have these are your friends, this is going to be your enemy, and now with this friend-enemy distinction, everything becomes simple, and you can sort of you understand why you're hated, which could be a completely arbitrary reason. Now, what then happens to this person is, as they get like unmasked, they lose their all social support they have. The support they get from this group is probably not very good, and at the same time, let's say that it was honest. Let's take it at face value. They take the drug that gives them trait openness. So the funny thing is that most of their political views were probably like sort of mid-tier anyway. They weren't like an intellectual. Didn't arrive at this idea most likely through some kind of a rigorous pursuit. And so they shift to another group that happens to love bomb them immediately, with interviews, studies, positive attention, and a plausible story of like support this guy now. I hope that the person is taken honestly and supported, and I think that's a good outcome. Obviously, I'm against anything involuntary, but the involuntary comes from our current regime that prevented any experimentation with these compounds unless you get a very specific approval. So it is what it is.
Yeah. So like I want to like take the looking at this seriously and like steel manning this argument for like, if we have individuals who are more likely to be a danger to society, like men who are more likely to beat their wives, children who are more likely to abuse their children, right? Or sorry, women who are more likely to abuse their children, and people who could commit mass violence, or like enjoy, maybe not even enjoy, but just like are more likely to cause suffering to the world around them. We can identify these people and we gave them a drug that made them more compassionate and willing and able to fit within the confines of society, right? And maybe that just happens to alter their politics, because a more compassionate based mindset would change your politics. Like, why would that not be better for society? Like, if we could stop these things beforehand, it's not like pre-crime, like we're arresting people, right? We we understand that there are people who are mentally ill, and we help them all the time. This is like a sure bet, though, right? Like, unlike all the other methods we have now, this pill is a sure bet, and it will accomplish the goal. Why wouldn't we want to make that maybe a mandatory thing?
The reason we wouldn't want it to be mandatory is the same reason why we wouldn't want people to not be able to have access to psychedelics, which is we want to make sure that we uphold from a robust society a standard of people having some sense of bodily autonomy. If you don't, then you have a less robust society. So that's the big issue, is just that, are you allowing people to do with their body what they please as long as it doesn't impact anyone else? Or are you forcing people to believe certain things and not have control over what goes inside and out of them?
The biggest problem here is why do you need body autonomy? Because you need decentralization. So you've created a hypothetical where you assume that this works out, but the reality is much more complex. There's a story from my youth of some guy we knew, and he had some problem in his brain. It's like the Homer Simpson story. He got hit on the head, and suddenly something changed in his personality, and he became a much better person. Now, it's really false to conclude from that one experiment that if you start hitting people on the head, they will have better personalities. That's first. Second, with psychedelics, we already know that there's risks involved. So if I'm not mistaken, and this maybe Corey will correct me, right? This is just very nebulous knowledge. One dose, if you have certain genetic predestination for it, certain things that might be in your brain, might enhance your risks for various mental diseases. And that's like, so we will have to analyze, even if you were taking this approach, which I completely reject, even if you were to hypothesize there, what are you missing? And this is why you don't want central planning on the issue.
Well,
if somebody wants to conduct an experiment, let's do it.
But okay, so I'm talking about a hypothetical drug that is
the perfect one. No,
the perfect
negative
one.
side effect. Yeah,
right. Like that's kind of like inbuilt within the hypothetical. Like I one thing, I'm completely skeptical of like the story that Corey told. I had heard about that story previously, and I've heard also that like those drug trips don't end up massively changing people's personalities, right? It gives them a shift in perspective, but sometimes like re-entrenches them into like what they already previously believe. Our friend Doobie had an experience like that, right? And still
the ego grew back.
He's back to normal now. But there is a drug, though. There is a drug that you might be thinking of, lithium. So there has been like multiple.
It's an antipsychotic.
Yes, not only that, but it's also a mood stabilizer. And there have been proposals, just like we put fluoride in the water for tooth health, to put lithium in the drinking water, like the water supply, because in trace amounts, it's been shown to lower the aggression. It stabilizes your mood and lowers risk of suicide. And so, if are we comfortable with the government quite literally changing our psychology through the drinking water?
Oh, we are comfortable. We already experienced that comfort.
With fluoride, right? We're putting fluoride.
Not just with fluoride. Wait, I don't care about fluoride for now. Let's remember just a couple of years ago, we had a whole bunch of people being coerced to put things into their system that we're currently finding out step by step. Various, maybe it wasn't exactly as described. Now, interestingly, there's another drug that I won't even risk naming because I don't know if the policy's changed. But it starts with the letter I, and this drug, if we make everybody take it, then there is a small percentage of the population that has certain genetic markers that might actually get killed. So we have to be careful about that. But for everybody else, it will be like on average just a net benefit for society. And the drug, if you look at its toxicology reports and like safety record, in Africa, it's taken by entire countries with of completely like people of like low level of literacy, low understanding of dosages and whatnot, without any major negative effects, just with positive effects. So we have in fact the miracle drug, and we're not taking it. I wonder why. It's an anti-parasitic.
Okay. I get it. Never mind. It took me a second. Sorry about that. All right.
Insulin, referring to insulin is what he's talking
insulin,
about.
Clearly.
Insulin, yes.
Doobie, I actually want to hear your thoughts because you have been, I think, skeptical, if you will. So like this idea of like lithium, putting it trace amounts in the water, and like lowering aggression, lowering crime, right? Like we just had this weekend, this July 4th weekend, in which there was just like a spate of mass shootings, which just happens here in America because of guns. But beyond that, like people just like within the summer get more aggressive because they're hot and they get like agitated, and then you put them in like a close environment, and then conflicts break out. If we could like just lower that across the board, would that not be a better society? What do you think, Doobie?
Yeah, I think so. And I've been listening to the responses that people are giving in it, and I don't think any of them are convincing. Right. So if we could, give people a pill that would fix like pedophilia or something, right? Like they're attraction to minors. Why shouldn't we do that? I think it's up to like 5% of adult men have like pedophilic tendencies or like sexual attractions. So if we could do that and just
is there any dispute over
there
whether or
is.
not people are people being
Pedophilia
okay
is
with
much
taking
different than like
psychopharmaca?
political belief.
Is there any just a moment? Is there any dispute actually with anybody in here who's opposed to psychopharmacotherapy in general, or is it just the case you're opposed to it being forced? Because you're a single person who's opposed to it broadly?
Good question.
I wouldn't think so.
I don't know. I'm opposed to it like broadly in the sense of if it being used indiscriminately. I believe, right? It feels a little bit too.
No, I'm saying like the industry as a whole of psychopharmacotherapy. Do you have an issue with that as a category of health care?
Don't have an issue. I have an issue with like levels of responsibility in like a market. I think that state granted monopolies and immunities are just like a no-go because you remove any responsibility. Like why even have the government at that point? Just shields a giant corporation. But if they were not shielded, and if they were not protected by all of their layers of protection that they have, I think it would be like an acceptable market that I would personally exclude myself from. I would likely advocate for excluding everyone I know from that. Like I wouldn't want to interact with people.
Wait, so if someone was identified as like a pedophile, I just want to ask you guys like directly. I feel like you guys aren't answering it directly. So if someone were a pedophile, right? Well, we understood that they had this paraphilia, right? Do you believe that it would be wrong for us to mandate or require that they take a pill that either suppresses or fixes that attraction?
I already answered this question. Pedophilia is different than political belief.
Is it a yes?
Yes,
or no,
I think I don't. Sorry, no, I don't think it'd be wrong to do that. But pedophilia is much different than political belief.
Okay, Lactose. What about you? What about Casper?
I don't think it's fair to answer that question because there's like a clear case of hostage taking here. It's like imagine if you had a pill that would undo World War II and Hitler and like everything else that happened with that guy. and you bring that into the discussion like a Godwin fallacy, and you ask them, well, would you take that pill? And like the obvious midwit dumbass answers to say, well, of course, yes, of course I would do that, without thinking at all about what consequences, what like principles you're accepting here. So the principal answer is actually no. Like,
Okay, but what,
You
on
mean
what
yes is
basis?
wrong to do.
Wait,
because
Wait, but
magic
on-
doesn't exist.
on what
I would
base-
love for magic to exist hypothetically.
If it did,
but magic
look, it's
doesn't
just a
exist. There's no
counterfactual.
such pill.
Look, it's just a counterfactual, right? If it did,
On-
right? If it could exist, would you think that it's okay to mandate? I would say it's wrong to mandate. It'd be wrong
On
to
what-
mandate that. Would you, Casimir?
I would say that it would be wrong to mandate pre-crime, but any indication of a crime occurring, and that could be like a punishment.
We're
So if
saying
you
we
think
only
that
know
there's
about
a-
their mental health. We know they have an attraction towards minors, but they never committed a crime.
On
Would it be
what
okay?
basis are you? On what basis are you saying that they're attracted to minors, though? Like, what basis are you?
They
are
admit
you, are
to
you
it in
pulling
clinical
from?
therapy. There's just a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Okay, but exactly what Chinchilla said in chat, like if men is shown pictures of minors and not told that they're minors, they are more inclined to say they're attracted to the physical body parts, not being told they're minors. But when they're told they're minors,
The
they're like, no,
hypotheticals
I'm
that they
I'm
do.
no
The
longer
hypotheticals they
attracted
know.
because that stays that matter of fact matters. We can't take that out
We're
when we're
just
saying
assuming
that
that
are
they
you
know.
attracted to this person or not?
We're
Yeah,
assuming they're
so
attracted to 8-year-olds.
yeah,
Make it
like
nice and simple.
they step into like a metal detector, and it's like, oh, you're a pedophile, right? Like, and we
Yeah,
got
this is
okay.
a- this is a-
Minority
I
Report.
I have to actually, you know what? I have to object to this. This is like this is a very typical sort of clickbaiting where you can't discuss the actual topic because the topic is like a huge life-ending like minefield, and the only like socially prescribed action in every members of society is if you locate those people because they commit the most heinous acts. Unless they're politicians, then they're fine. But if they're like regular people, you have to kill them. If you're a prisoner, you have to kill them.
I don't think anybody's
you relate
advocating
it-
that.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Let's not pretend. It's like openly advocated in society, and it's impossible to talk about it. It's like imagine if
We're
we
talking
had
about it now.
Just
You're
be
making
brave
it
enough to talk
impossible to
about
talk
it.
about.
All you have to do is just
yeah.
say it.
So I have to like basically I'm a hostage. I have to agree.
No, just say it. Look,
I
it's
have
wrong
agree
to it's wrong
You
to
don't
force
have to
pedophiles
agree.
get medical care.
If
I mean,
you
not
should
always.
say-
Not
when you-
always. I think
No
it
one's forcing you to
generally is wrong.
agree.
I think that you can just apply this like you would like any other kind of like severe mental illness, where if
No, I think that
it's to
Doobie-
the point where
Doobie
that
took it
we're
from-
afraid of them offending.
From a case of a right winger and like a white supremacist, he
No,
took it to a case
Doobie's
which
Doobie's
is like
percentages.
the most heinous thing that society doesn't know how to function around.
No, Doobie's percentages came from like men being shown pictures of minors and not being told they're minors, and asking if they're
I
attracted
think,
to this
Scott,
person.
I think you're like totally missing the point of the question. Right?
No, I understand the
Prime
point of the
pres-
question.
when
I've already
Prime-
agreed.
Prime-
No, wait,
I'm
stop,
also-
stop,
Prime presented this
stop. I
earlier.
understand.
You mentioned like
I
psychopaths,
understand.
right?
I understand.
Okay, so he wasn't just talking about political affiliation.
You gave percentages. I understand the point of the question. I've already answered the point of the question twice. If you'd like to, I'll answer it a third time. Yes, I think pedophiles should take forced medication to get rid of pedophilia.
Okay.
Okay? Now, I'm also going to say that your percentages are based off of numbers in which men were shown pictures of minors and were not told that they were minors. And the natural assumption is going to be that they're not minors.
Irrelevant.
And then when they were told
Irrelevant
they
to the
were
question.
minors, that percentage drops significantly.
Okay, so your position is that yes, if you had the ability to, you would mandate that people take some kind of pill to weed out belief systems or personality traits or
Yeah, this is where
sexual
it's going.
orientations that you dislike. Like that's what your position actually is.
Hey, if I could weed out
And I
mass
agree
shooters,
with
I'd do
you.
that too.
I agree with you actually. Yeah, and I agree with you. That's totally fine.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
I
where
just-
this
I
is
think it's
how
fine
this
too.
hypothetical works. First, you're asked like if you would I don't know kill one person to save 5, right? And it's and you would say, oh no, appalling. But then
No,
you
no,
ask,
most people
but then
say
you
yes
ask-
to that question.
But then you of course, well, you can minimize this. You minimize this until would you steal a penny to save the world? And you're supposed to
Of
say,
course you would.
well, of course I would steal a penny. But then you're asked, would you kill 1 billion people to save the world?
These are all easy questions.
And then
Yes,
you would
sir.
say
Yeah.
no because, and you would
No, I wouldn't
quote
say
and you
no
would
to that
say because
question.
I would live in a world such that I am such a person.
These are
who
all
could
easy
kill 1
questions
billion
to
people.
answer.
Yes,
Casimir,
I would
I'd
kill
answer
1 billion
I
people to save
remember
the
your
world.
answer, Sid.
easily.
Right, exactly.
1 billion to kill the world easily.
Y-
Well, penny to
yes,
save the
this-
world easily. 1 to kill 5 easily, and most people agree. Right? Most people agree with this. We have polling data on it. I can show you it. You're
Yes,
mistaken.
because most people
You should just answer
follow
questions
a
directly. You don't have to be
backwards-
scared of answering
a
them.
backwards philosophy. Yes, Just
That's
like
not- that's-
I remember
that's
you-
not even
Yes,
the case.
yes,
That's
I
not
remember
even the
Wait,
case.
exactly how many
Sam,
people
do you bite do you bite like
remember
the
exactly how many
operating
people you
table with
refused
like
to
organ
kill.
transplant bullet? Do you bite that one?
No,
So
I think that it's bad
if
to make
the-
sure that
it
I think it's bad
depends
to
on
make people
which-
scared of getting.
it depends on
their-
which
What if
side
you
is
only
the
did for
greater
like a
good?
certain racial demographic?
It depends
so you
on
don't
which
have to
side
worry
is the
about
greater
it?
good.
Hold on.
Pretty
What
bad.
are you saying, Lactoid, to Sam?
So like when people say like I think it's it's okay to kill one person to save
Mhm.
5, like one of the common like utility monsters that people bring up is okay, then like should we designate like some class of society?
The organ transplant.
Obviously not everybody because we don't want people to be afraid to go to the hospital.
The Uyghurs,
but we
yeah.
designate like some class of society where we get them and then we harvest their organs. We hunt them down, split them up by other organs, and save like 8 people that are waiting organ transplants. And like the question would be like, okay, so if your only problem with this is it's going to make people afraid to go to the hospital.
Nope.
You
Still,
could
there's
work-
still precedent issues, right? Well, there's one issue with it, but that doesn't mean it's the only issue with it. So saying this
What
is
other
sufficient
issues?
for the action to be bad doesn't mean that it's the case this is necessary for the action to be bad. So other issues end up being things like the social precedent that's set. If you have rights violations in societies, making sure that you have a society where everyone's rights are taken into account and everyone has an inalienable right to things like bodily autonomy is important for making sure you have a society that doesn't fall apart at the seams. It's not the case that you have to have these rights violations to maximize utility or to make the world the best possible consequences. Of course, the best possible consequences
we
don't
violate
involve
rights.
rights violations.
Yeah, we violate rights a lot.
We do?
So is what you're saying that like once we start violating some rights, like this in of itself is wrong because it sets the precedent that
For more to be
that
violated.
it's acceptable to violate more rights down the road.
Exactly.
This
Yeah.
sounds like an anarcho-capitalist argument.
It's not an anarcho-capitalist argument. It's a liberal argument.
No, it is the anarcho-capitalist argument, and the way you make
Nope.
it the liberal argument is you start closing your eyes when certain violations occur.
So you're just
Yeah.
that you deem
confused. You're
socially
just confused
acceptable
about what
via the
rights
social
are.
contract.
You
Such
think
as
rights are
you
like
live-
La
you
La
live in a
Land. You think rights are
we
like La La
both
Land
live in a
stuff, and I
country
think
with
rights are something
conscription.
that I think that rights depend on what creates the best outcomes. That's the difference between our views.
Well, we
I
save a
think
bunch of
rights
people
aren't
needing
magical.
organs,
I
right?
think rights are instrumental.
So
Rights are a tool.
there's a different
Yeah, he's
answer.
just skipping. He's
No.
actually just dodging what Lactoid
No,
said.
it's
Lactoid-
still
no
Lactoid
dodge.
provided with an example where lives are objectively saved and the
They're
group
not.
is isolated.
They
I
are.
can-
No, he
it's-
didn't.
Well,
no,
I
no,
have
they didn't.
principles that oppose that. When we ask about the principles, it's utility, of course.
Of course,
th-
the
you-
only
you-
principle is utility, and the other things are instrumental to that principle. So all these other things are just means to the end of making sure that everyone has a better outcome. And I'm telling you, the case of taking away people's organs against their will does not lead to the best possible outcomes. There's no inconsistency. There's no ANCAP argument. You're just too confused to think outside your ANCAP framework.
Here. What if we only took organs from non-citizens and we had the very firm rule that citizens will never have the organs taken? That way, nobody in society
Still be a rights
Right.
violation. It's still a rights violation to violate the rights of people who aren't your citizenry. I don't
You
think
must
that you're
know
only
grounds
owed.
to
I don't
assert
think that
that
you
right.
only owe people. I don't think you only owe people their rights respected when they agree to a contract with you. to
So
come
what
on
do you
ANCAP.
so what do you define as a rights violation then?
So I think there are a lot of rules that exist that maximize utility to take as existing, right? And these rules, so long as we follow them, we wouldn't be violating rights. But if we break the rules, then we are violating rights.
Utility is not something
That's the
that you can
definition of a
measure.
rights violation.
And the
Oh, okay,
worst part
you're
is that you
not giving
can't
me
compare
examples.
it between two different people.
You didn't ask for an example. You asked for a definition. You want an example? I can give you examples if you'd like. You should ask for that.
Why is it not a right to to be when you're trying to save the most amount of people in terms of like, do you have a right to a heart? Do you have a right to a liver? Do you have a right to life-saving care? Is that a right? Do you think?
No, I don't think that making sure that you can snatch organs away from other people will maximize utility. So it's not a right.
Well, no, that's the process.
on
No,
the
that's the
what?
process. Hold on. Snatching away organs would be the process to fulfill what some people would dictate is the right, right? So the right would
Yep.
be you have the right to survive, right? You have the right to live even if your heart's failing or even if your liver's failing. So you have this
What
right.
does that? What does it mean to have a right to survive?
I
You don't have
know,
a right
like-
to kill someone else.
If you don't know what it
have a
means,
right
then I
to
can't
kill
even
someone
engage.
else.
You have no idea what a
so,
right
so,
is.
so if someone's starving in the street, do they have a right to food?
I think they do have a right to food. I don't think you have a right to property.
Why do they have a right to food?
To your food, Lactoid.
Wait,
Yeah,
hold
to
on.
your
Why-
food in particular. yeah.
Why do they have a right to food but not like a heart?
I think the reason you have a right to food but not a heart is because food is taken away from the environment naturally. It's part of the land, but heart is not. Heart is part of other people.
No. This is absolute nonsense. Food
No nonsense.
for the past maybe close to 100 years now has not been.
Doesn't
should
matter.
Find out the exact date. Has not been coming out of the environment. If you
Doesn't
look
matter.
at-
It's irrelevant to the
if,
argument.
if you look at the majority of the food production
Total
in the world,
tangent.
it's based
This is irrelevant.
on a completely artificial
Total tangent.
process that requires like extreme heavy.
Total tangent.
This
I
is
didn't say that-
irrelevant.
I didn't.
and
I didn't
mind
say
and
what
capital
currently,
intensive
Casimir. You're
industry.
just. I could tell you over and over again. It's
It's
irrelevant,
not
right?
coming from.
It's very
Wait,
obviously
what is the
irrelevant. I'm not
distinction of
telling
coming-
you.
Wait,
I'm not
you're-
telling you
you're
that
just started
currently this is
talking
how it's
now.
made.
I'll
I'm telling you
explain
where
to
does
you
the
what
food
I'm
Casimir,
actually
originate.
stop
about
like
to
interrupting with
react.
irrelevant points, please. Like
No,
Well,
it is
to be
irrelevant.
fair,
onto
Simps is
something and you
interrupting.
brought up like
He's
an irrelevant
saying that
point.
Food comes from nature. but we're not subsistence farming anymore. We're not picking up various things off of a tree.
Doesn't matter.
Actually, the majority of us are only alive because of fertilizers being produced on a massive industrial scale using
the origins of things are not dictated by their current states. The origins of things are not dictated by the current states, Casimir.
Casimir, I don't see how Casimir, I don't see how this even matters because like that the heart of this disagreement. Yeah, I get I get you. You're right in terms of like the food production, but like it doesn't matter in terms of his argument because all he's trying to do is draw a distinction between the two, right? And the bigger distinction is that like bodily autonomy is like sacrosanct, right? Like that's the whole point. Was it Lactoid?
He's not supporting that.
I had a follow-up question.
He is supporting that.
So the follow-up question, Synth, is when you say no, you can't kill someone to harvest the organs to save five people because that violates the person you're killing's rights. But before you said obviously you'd kill one person to save five people. So can you give me an example of a situation in which you're not violating somebody's rights by killing them? To
train tracks. People? The train track scenario. You're not violating anybody's right in that case. You don't have a right to have your life prioritized over other people's. You do have a right to make sure that people don't put things inside you against your will.
Yeah. Okay. If
whoa! Hold on. Hold on. But the train is going into your body against your will.
Yeah, the train is going into your body against your will. You are not putting it there, right? You are there.
You are
putting
it there. That's the point of the train analogy.
Excuse me, Lactoid. Calm down. Wait. So the reason why in the train scenario you are not putting it inside anyone is because either way it's going inside people. If there were scalpels that were going to fall down and they were going to do surgery on people, or you could press a lever that caused it instead, you personally caused the scalpel to go open up somebody else's organs, then there's not a moral wrong that you've done there, right? If it's the case that you are putting things, I don't think there's any difference between you choosing to pull the lever one way and you choosing to leave it the other way. Either way, trains are going through people.
Sure.
You have made the choice to let trains go through people in both scenarios. There is no difference between action and omission.
Let me change the hypothetical then. You have a button, you can press it, and if you press the button, the train will run over the person and go inside them. And if you don't press the button, 5 people will just die. No train hits them. No, it does not explain how they die. They just keel over. Hypothetically, they just keel over, fall over, flat dead.
You haven't used them as a resource.
Why does that matter?
Because it's bodily autonomy. That's the whole point of bodily autonomy, is if you're using people as a resource. If you're using somebody else's body as a resource. If you're invading somebody else's body. If what you're doing is you're tying people to train tracks, and you have either the choice of doing something to one person or doing something to 5 people, if there's no distinction between these actions, then you choosing to kill 5 people instead of you choosing to kill 1 person is more rights violating.
You ignored me. You ignored me because I changed my hypothetical. You ignored me because I changed my hypothetical to where the new hypothetical.
Yo, Lactoid, can you make it simpler?
No, I've made it simple, but he just ignored my.
There's no rights violation in the case of pushing a person.
He just ignored my change, right? So my change was if you push the button, the train will invade someone's bodily autonomy and go inside their body without their consent.
The train is not violating your bodily autonomy. It's an inanimate object.
If you push a person into a train track, you're not violating their bodily autonomy?
If it's the case that you're doing that to save, if it's the case that you're doing that to save 5 other people, then it's the case that you have less rights violation in one case than the other.
No, the train wait, one second. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole.
Hey. I want Lactoid to finish this thing, and then Spartacus, you can jump in because you had a very specific hypothetical.
Yes, the very specific hypothetical is you have one person who is like, if you press the button, a train will come out of fucking nowhere and like violate their bodily integrity and bodily autonomy. And if you don't push the button, 5 people will just die. It's not explained how they die. Nothing goes in their body. They just keel over.
It is explained how they die.
No.
You haven't pressed the button.
In this hypothetical, so in this hypothetical, nothing invades their body. But if you don't press the button, they just die.
Sorry, you're saying if you don't press the button, that's what causes them to die. So it is explained how they die. Your actions kill them. You kill 5 people.
Right, but their body isn't penetrated by anything.
So you choose to kill 5 people or choose to kill 1 person.
But their body isn't penetrated by anything.
Which one has less rights violations?
But their body isn't penetrated by anything.
You can keep saying that over and over again.
Well, I'm gonna keep saying it because
I've answered your question.
No, you have not.
Yes, I have. You said you didn't like the answer, but I answered it directly.
Answer my question. I've ever seen.
I have very clearly answered your stupid fucking question that you had to change over and over again.
You have
every single time I answer it. Now answer mine.
No.
The answer was it is okay to press the button. That was the answer. Now answer my question.
You said it's bodily autonomy. You said nothing has the right to go
Yes.
inside your body. But my fucking
Yes.
change
You don't have a
hypothetical
right to
was
have
that
your
nothing
organs
goes
taken out
inside
and
your
used
body.
as a resource. Correct. In the case of your scenario, you're dying. What do you think it means to go inside your body? Do you think the morally relevant factor
Yeah,
is
and you're gonna
literally a
die from
physical
heart
item?
failure. You're gonna die
Is
of heart
a
failure. They're gonna
excuse me,
harvest your organs.
lactoid. Excuse me,
Oh, you're
lactoid.
gonna
You don't
interrupt
understand the
everybody? You're
argument.
gonna interrupt Casimir
You don't
18
understand the
times,
argument.
and then you're
I'm
gonna have
gonna
like a little
coach you
bitch when
through
somebody
this for you to
interrupts you.
understand the argument. Your sub 40 IQ can gain the knowledge that I'm going to give you if
You're
you
gonna
stop
keep talking
talking,
over
lactoid.
Casimir,
Okay,
and then somebody cuts you off, and you're acting like a little bitch.
My
Is that what it
voice,
is?
my
Okay,
voice
all right.
has supremacy here. Okay, that's what we do here. So Synth, you can respond. Then we'll go to Sprouticus, Casimir. We're curious if Ty was to jump in, and Doobie was like had some really interesting things to say before, so I want to make sure that he gets to say that again. So Synth.
Yep. So what Lactoid doesn't understand is that the bad aspect of the rights is not any magical rights violation. It's the fact that there are social precedents that are set. I mean, it's very clear. We care about the consequences. I'm just a utilitarian. So the reason why it's okay is because there are less rights that are violated in one scenario than the other. And so that's what makes it okay to do the action of killing one person as opposed to killing 5. In the case of violating people's rights, you have not done so by somebody else dying naturally of causes. It's not the case that somebody dying naturally of their organs that they depend on falling apart is somebody who you violated the rights of by not ripping somebody else's organs out to use them as a means to an end. In the case of killing, there is a rights violation if you kill all else equal. However, in the case where you have to choose between killing 5 or killing 1, you have done something wrong if you choose to kill 5. You saying don't press the button is the same as you pressing a button that kills 5 people. There is no relevant moral difference.
Okay, so we got to move past.
Wait. I'm not gonna. Synth does not have to respond to this. This is just like a statement on this. The reason why this makes the reason you can if you want. The reason why this makes no sense is because you simply have to rhetorically frame it differently in order to get the desired outcome that Synth is looking for. If instead of saying, well, if you don't push the button, that kills 5 people, I could simply rephrase it to, if you don't push the button, 5 people aren't saved, and then all of a sudden he's going to change his opinion.
No. In the case of 5 people not being saved, you have done the action of killing them if it's the case that you've chosen an equal option between both scenarios. In the case of the 1 getting hit by a train, it's totally equivalent to 5 people getting hit by a train. There is no distinction between those.
Let's go to Casimir. Let's go to Casimir.
Why don't you harvest their
What about me?
Did I say Sprout first or was I Casimir first?
You said me first, but
I'm
You
sorry.
said Sprout, it's fine.
I apologize.
so like the simple idea here is like the goalpost has moved so many times with that last hypothetical. It's insane. It started off with like, well, what if 5 people just randomly died if you didn't revert the train to the 1 person? And then it turned into Casimir saying, what if you push the person in front of the train to save the 5 people? Then it turned there's so many turns that one hypothetical had. It's absolutely insane to try and push Synth and say he's being bad faith when there's so much goalpost moving, and you're like, oh, but by the way, no, we moved the goalpost over here. You have to answer this question before I answer yours. This is absolutely insane, and it's bad faith at its finest.
No, it's called narrowing the question because someone's weaseling out using
There was no
tangentials.
weaseling.
That's what's happening.
I directly
Lactoid,
answer the question each and every single time. Could I ask you a question really quick? One super quick question, Lactoid?
Sure. Go
Lactoid,
first.
would you steal 1 penny from Adolf Hitler to stop the Holocaust?
Yes, I would.
You'd steal a penny to save the world, so you're okay with rights violations too?
Yeah, I think it's like there's like a weighing to some extent. Yeah.
So there's no reductio on my position. Nice. Gotcha.
Okay, Casimir.
Right, so just for Sproutacus and anyone else, open up Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, open Utilitarianism or Consequentialism, and you will find these classical hypotheticals being presented to you and explained with common answers, with like dates next to names of
No, this
various,
isn't classical
philosophical
hypotheticals.
writings on the topic.
Pushing
What's
someone in front of a
present,
train
though,
is not a classical
is-
hypothetical. The
it is-
classical
it is a-
hypothetical, the classical
Hold on, no, we gotta finish.
the
Hold on. He's been waiting.
Come on, I'm explaining it to the audience.
It's bad faith.
Yeah.
It's not a classical
It's not
hypothetical.
bad
Let him finish it.
There is bad. It's not bad faith. I'll explain. Now the lever is actually equivalent to the pushing. The pushing just makes it more visceral to people, and so psychologically, people who are like fine with pulling levers because they don't think there's a causal link, they're less fine with pushing. But the problem is here. What's submitted is the real murderer in this situation is the person who established the whole thing, is the trap setter. He's the murderer, and in any court, if you would like establish a case of somebody building this system, some evil maniac establishing this, they would be the principal responsible party. However, any of their accomplices would also be responsible for their actions. That's how it should operate. So if you're forced at gunpoint to shoot someone, you will be responsible for that action as well. You will be a murderer if you pull the trigger. And it might be a situation where you decide, well, I'd rather live than the other guy, but it's fine. You've accepted murder. And this is what's very important. It was not a justified killing. Also,
no, you won't.
You never actually know.
No, you won't. You won't. That's just factually false. You will not be convicted in court. If you were held at gunpoint and told to shoot somebody else, and you shoot that other person to protect your own life, you will not be convicted in court for murder because you were held at gunpoint. You were distressed when you made that decision. You will not be convicted for murder. The second part is what you're making is not a classical argument. The classical argument is there's one person laying on the tracks on one side, there's 5 people laying on the tracks on the other side. Do you pull the lever to move the train over to the one person? Or do you let the train run over the 5 people? That is the classical argument. Now, the reason there's been peer-reviewed studies, by the way, for this, as well. The reason that people are less likely to push somebody instead of pull the lever into the one person is because it takes actual force of someone who was not in danger to put them in danger, and then to save the 5 people at the chance that you save the 5 people, because it's not guaranteed that one person's going to stop the fucking train. So, no, this isn't a classical argument. There's been peer-reviewed papers that prove this is a classical argument, and the fact that you're going to sit here and try and describe law when you have no idea what the fucking law is absolutely bad faith, and maybe you should research a little bit more before you come on trying to spout random shit.
I'm going to leave it at that. Let's go to our friend Ty, if Ty has anything to add, and then I want to hear if DB wants to jump in.
I do a little bit here, and there's a level where like my own principles kind of get in the way here, where I'm not like absolutely like jumping down people's throats in this fight. I think you're all immoral because you all do not share the same moral codes that I do. Now I can sit here for the next 20-30 minutes telling you all, while you are like immoral sexist shit in some facet or another, I have better things to do, right? So I totally get where Lactoid and Kashmir are coming from versus Scent, because these are two moral frameworks that actually kind of like or I don't know how to put it. They're kind of standard, at least in my method of thinking. They come from some pretty like root principles. Like I can deal with that. I understand where they're coming from, like where their value lies. I'm not going to openly just say that one of them is more correct than the other. I don't know why, but apparently, if you believe in any kind of creator, which I do not, and this is probably one of the biggest reasons, if there was an adherent moral code to the universe, like we all would be instilled with that, and we wouldn't have to question what the fuck was right and wrong. Like, I'm literally just kind of that opinion. We can go from there.
Can I just comment on this, just to explain where my distinction from Lactoid is? So I believe that you can have like a value, like an end that you would want, which is the end is to save as many people as possible, or the end is to explore the universe, or the end is to, have a healthy society. And let's say I know that, I can do this somehow with a scalpel by harming certain people and not others. But in reality, I don't accept the means. My ideology is strictly about the means of achieving those ends. I don't accept the actual violation of body autonomy and everything that flows out of body autonomy, like concepts of conflict avoidance and property, and concepts of, the history of people's interactions and establishing of borders. Like all of those things are, in my philosophy, connected to body autonomy, and I'm not ready to violate it as a means, which we will discuss many times as we go to the other topic, which is I want to achieve the same things, but I'm not willing to sacrifice the principles to do that. So I have to come up with different strategies where I have to actually convince people that they should, take whatever measure we're proposing. And then if
those
they do
different strategies involve you being a lying sack of shit.
Or I have to prove, I have to prove two things. I have to prove that they intend to harm another, and if they communicate that intent, then at that moment they're no longer a moral agent to the proportion of the crime they're about to commit.
What?
Or
are you gonna answer my question?
I have a question, but
or they're not, in their right mind, and then I would assume that they would need to be under some form of guardianship by whoever is nearby.
Are you going to answer my question, Casimir? I want Casimir to answer my question.
One second before. Wick TV, thank you for the kind raid. And on Twitch and I believe on YouTube. The numbers went up on YouTube, so I'm assuming people came in. But shout out to my man Wick. I hope you had a great stream. And guys, we're so what are we talking about now? So first we're talking about drugging men.
MDMA.
We're drugging the population, not just men, right? Equal opportunity. They're drugging the population to get them to be like more docile and like commit less crimes. And like, what are the morals behind that? And then it kind of evolved into like, you know, the trolley problem. You know, who would you save? Like a small amount of people to like, would you kill a small amount of people to save a larger amount of people? And we've been like bouncing back and forth there. But still, we're talking about like drugging society. So stick around for that. Hit the follow button if you haven't done so on Twitch. We'd love to have you. We're going to be talking about European immigration. That would be our second topic, and whether they should ban it or whatever, right? So hit the follow button on Twitch and subscribe button on YouTube if you're there. Thanks so much. All right, finish your point, and then I do want to get to Julie.
I want Casimir to answer my question though.
I used outdated language. I didn't mean they stopped being a moral agent. I meant to say they would not be able to argue against the punishment.
How about you answer my question, Casimir?
Sure, please re-ask it.
Okay, yeah. Do the measures involve you being a lying sack of shit as the authority figure?
What? Sorry, what? Can you repeat that again and again?
So you said you're willing to use certain measures. Do those measures involve you being a lying sack of shit as the authority figure?
I don't understand. What are you asking?
I guess okay, so you must understand what I said before when I told you that what you were saying was completely and utterly inaccurate, and you had no response to that. The panel remained silent for 1 to 2 seconds before Prime moved it to somebody else. So I will then point back to you being completely and utterly inaccurate with what the sources you were giving and what those sources were saying.
I might have been wrong, but I believe that when I was reading SCP, in that article, they indicated the pushing. And you're right, you provided proper distinctions that I didn't note at the time. But I think that those distinctions are there because they actually make the hypothetical more analogous to real life. Because in real life, you never can know the future for certain, and not even to a high probability, because what you propose is, the problem with all of these hypotheticals is that you propose something very specific, but then you try to generalize it to like a universal case. And that's where the issues arise. So by shifting it the way you indicated correctly, the way you corrected me, good on you, it makes it more realistic. Because then you actually are the direct pusher, as he said, and the outcome is less known. Fine. Corrected.
All right. I'm glad we got there.
Casimir, you said that you think it's the case that, I mean, you corrected yourself from losing moral agency to can't argue against the punishment, but you understand that just because somebody can't argue against the punishment doesn't mean the punishment's justified, so it's basically just a moot. It means nothing.
No. Within my framework, that's saying that. So there is two principles. Being unable to argue, meaning that they normally you would be able to say that my actions were justified or unjustified, and the justification is a process through argument. You would have to argue that. The problem for the criminal is that he already demonstrated a prior type of behavior, which is that violations of property of body autonomy are fine, and therefore the way the estoppel principle would work is that. In court, there would be like a logical fork. Either they accept that what they did is wrong, and then they can't argue against the punishment, or they try to argue not, and then they would be like in contradiction between their prior actions and their current words.
So before you respond, we got a super chat from someone in YouTube. We read YouTube super chats. So if you're out there and you want to say something to these guys, well then super chats are very much appreciated. Fondue gave us $5. Shout out to Fondue. Forget a drug to make people docile. Make a drug that makes people more motivated and pro-social. But we haven't really considered the motivated part. The pro-social is kind of like built in, like with like being docile. Like that was kind of like the point, you know. That like
I mean,
use,
MDMA
less
arguably does
aggression.
that, or ecstasy arguably does that.
But more motivated. Well, I guess maybe just sprinkle in some cocaine, guys. But anyway, yeah. Thank you so much,
Not
Fondue.
medical advice.
And if you want to like interject, right, about the audience, go to our YouTube channel and consider giving us a super chat. It means a lot. Thank you so much. All right, go ahead. You can respond to whoever. And I do want to get my man Doobie in here.
Yeah, Casimir. You agree that somebody's worse off if they've been murdered than if they've been sexually assaulted, right? Premise for the argument. Okay. So then if somebody, in proportion to murder, something that would be less bad would be sexual assault.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So if a woman murders her husband, can you sexually assault her because you can't argue against it?
Well, I don't think that's how it would work, but I do think so.
Can it be unjustified?
Okay, I think that
the bullets for ANCAP ethics are so much worse than anything utilitarian
I
ever
think
have
that
to
you can
bad.
I think that you can that if in the hypothetical you have like absolute knowledge that she's the murderer,
that she murdered her husband,
then the punishment could be death. But
could the punishment be less bad than death?
Punishment be rape? Then I would say if that's what the victim's family negotiates with her, I would say that I wouldn't like that on an emotional level, but not on a legal level.
I mean, on an ethical level, would it be unjustified?
No, I don't think it's ethically unjustified, but it'll be like the level of her punishment would be the level of the sort of epistemic wager, the knowledge wager of the family, of like the people who have the moral right, the ethical right to punish. That will be their wager, what they're willing to wager on the truth of that being the murderer.
So it'd be totally justified for the family of the victim to say something like, well, either you rape me and pay a fine as well, or sorry, either I get to rape you and you have to pay a fine as well, or I get to kill you, right? Those are your options. You have to pick. That would be justified on your ethic.
I think that on a very, very fundamental level, yes, unless we establish some kind of a system on top. Here's you have to indicate of what the wager does entail, though. Because if it's later found out that the person was innocent, right?
It's 100% certainty in the hypothetical.
There's no, like in our legal system, there's no 100%, and we understand there's no 100%. In the hypothetical, I already answered you, so asked and answered. I answered you.
Yep.
Yes, there's no.
You did. Yeah.
I don't like cruel punishments and unusual punishments, but I don't think there's an ethical argument against them. There's like a societal demand to not have them because they look ugly. But here's the problem. Here's what the actual wager is. When the family decides on a punishment, say lifetime imprisonment for that person, and they decide less than murder, if they only decide to kill that person, if we were to afford them that right, there's still a problem that we're not sure. This is why I'm still against the death penalty, because we're not sure. And what we would have to do is wager that if the person is later found innocent, then the next guy in charge is the person who asked for the killing would then become the murderer, and so they would have to be killed. So my preference would be to avoid such wagers. And I would say that if I want to establish a good society, we would say that the death penalty would not exist, and also cruel and unusual punishment would not exist. But would I be able to ethically argue against like a very cruel punishment for the objective crime of murder? No, I don't think so.
Okay, so can
I ask one more question? It's just the only response is a number, and then I want to ask a single other thing. And you can just move. We can move whatever you want on Prime. But I want to ask one question. How young can the potential rape victim be before it becomes it's no longer okay to rape them for killing someone? Just a number.
How young is the murderer have to be?
Yep. How young does the murderer have to be? The rape victim. Yeah.
I think that in our current society, we believe that 18 is the age.
I'm asking
of,
ethically, not what are not what societal norms.
So,
Your ethical
no,
justification.
the ethics determines on the ethics only apply to moral agents. So the people responsible for the crime. Let's say that there is a teenager that commits murder. That person cannot be held responsible because they're if they have no guardians, then there's no responsible party. They can't suffer any ethical.
16-year-old who's been emancipated. They don't have a guardian. They're a 16-year-old who's been emancipated. They don't have a guardian. They don't have a parent. They're just like
so the emancipation is not just a word. They would have to demonstrate that there's some kind of we would have to establish a system of objective emancipation. Even if in the hypothetical, if we had an objective system,
and we've established that.
Then we have
established that. Yeah.
Then we would have the case of an adult in a teenage body, and if we could prove that, right, then I don't see them suffering any of the full punishment. But this is another. The trap is not on the actual principles. The trap is in how can we make it feel bad but not make it feel bad.
Prime, I didn't know that.
So Prime, I not feel bad. It's disgusting.
Prime, I didn't know you did a age of consent debate.
No, this is an age of fucking rape debate.
Yeah, this is no consent involved. Okay,
this is more viral. This is more toxic.
This is the same, man. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
I just got here.
Interrupting our age of rape law.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chinchilla.
Is adulthood physical or mental?
Yeah.
Give him an intro.
Okay. We're sorry. We're moving past this. Okay. All right. Oh boy. God damn. This is. I like synth because they can.
We can't really move past this. Where his entire point was create a hypothetical where there's an adult in a baby's body, and then
not an adult in a baby's body.
Baby, and the whole point of it is
he gave you a 16-year-old. He gave you a 16-year-old. 16-year-olds commit heinous crimes, and 16-year-olds can have the wherewithal of an adult, right? And an adult can have a wherewithal of a child.
What's the earliest age? What's the earliest age that someone's been tried as an adult? I think it's 12. A 12-year-old's been tried as an adult.
Listen up, guys. If the girl looks like she is an 8-year-old. But she is actually 300 years old.
This is
the level not going there.
Thank you. We're going to go on to.
You have an indeterminate value.
We're sorry. We're done.
This is the police debate.
Casimir, please argue this in your own time. I didn't think there was anything worse than the age of consent argument, but we found it. All right.
Yeah, it's 26, by the way.
I can get on board with that.
Fucking based.
Yeah, there should be the age of consent, actually. I agree, 25, 26, yeah. Let's
and
go
then age of voting should be 90.
It should be 0.
Yeah, okay, sorry. That's a discussion.
My actual view, yeah.
Yeah,
if you're pregnant, you get 2 votes.
Wait, that's your actual opinion?
Negative 9
yes.
votes.
Yeah, I don't think people's rights to vote should be 0-year-olds. 0. Moment you're out of if you could vote from inside the womb, the moment you gain personhood, absolutely. The same reason I don't. Yeah. Hold on. What's the reason?
Inside the womb?
Let's talk about this. Yes. You gain personhood in some point in the late second trimester. Yeah.
I want to talk about Canada's euthanasia law and how they're euthanizing people because of hearing loss.
But before, hold on. That sounds interesting too. But before we do that, I promised that Doobie could go, and then Synth and Casimir did their thing. So, Doobie, if you have anything you want to say on this, I understand if the answer is no.
I think it's interesting actually, because there used to be this system where if you got caught stealing, they cut off your hand, for example, and I wonder why we stopped doing that, and if you guys think that it would be wrong to impose that kind of system today, where in lieu of prison sentence, right, in lieu of 10 years in prison for a crime, you give up a limb, right, as punishment. So what do you guys think about that sort of thing?
I'm a big anti-punishment fan. I think that the only point of punishment is to stop people from committing crimes in the future, and I think that it's pretty heinous to cut people's hands off.
What if we take their organs and save 5 people?
I think I
Wait,
think
you're like anti-punishment in general? Like,
I think
Yeah,
so
so
there's a guy recently. He just got caught like he's a serial killer, right? Like he was going down to Mexico and like,
I'll bite me
bullets,
bullets,
whatever. It's not a bullet. I'm just wondering what you mean by anti-punishment. So you wouldn't punish that guy?
I want people who have these mental disorders that make them do awful things to be forced to go into some kind of like holding facility where their brains can be fixed. I don't think they should be hurt because they hurt others.
I think prison
I don't
systems.
think
I think prisons.
They'd be put there
I think,
like mandatorily, right? They wouldn't be able to.
Yeah, of
leave.
course. I'm not.
They'd
Yeah,
still be
I
in
don't.
prison.
I think prison systems should be more rehabilitable than vengeance. Like I think that they should be more. I think they should be more rehabilitable. So I'm gonna say no based off the fact that I think that you should go to prison to be rehabilitated. Of course, there's some heinous crimes to where I would never trust rehabilitation of the person because of how heinous the crime was. For example, the H.H. Hinsworth. I would never trust him to be like rehabilitated. But for the large majority of crimes, I think that they can be rehabilitated. So I think the prison system should move more towards rehabilitation. The only thing you're doing by chopping someone's arm off and not giving them that prison sentence is you're stealing the rehabilitation or the possibility of rehabilitation from that person and instead taking a limb. So I'm going to argue that's a net negative and that they should have to go through the rehabilitative system.
Let's let JP respond, and then Lactoid and Chinchilla and Casimir and Ty as well. Okay.
Right. So Sprout. So you say rehabilitation. So like, what if I'd steal like $100,000 from somebody, right? And I'm going to prison for a few years or whatever that is, or whatever the penalty is there. And I get caught and I lose my job. My life's fucked. And I understand that this is a bad thing to do. I'm never going to do this again. Like you're saying you would still put me in prison for years of my life for this thing? Or are you saying that at the point where, if I can sit down and speak to like a psychologist or something and they determine that I'm actually like sorry for what I did and I understand why I was wrong, I'm not going to do it again, I would just face no punishment, no prison sentence at all, Sprout? And like, is that your position?
You would still receive a mandatory prison sentence in which we would try and figure out why you stole. Wait. In which we would try and figure out what drove you to steal the $100,000 and try and map that out to what could be best for you, the way that we could rehabilitate you into society. That way it doesn't happen again. Right? So you could be as sorry as you want to, but if those same conditions happen again and there's no treatment given, you're going to make the same decision.
What if it's just pretty straightforward? I'm broke and I needed money, so I stole it. Like
that's
not
what Sproutcast is saying is already happening, right? Because if it just makes like a prison sentence, he makes that determination based on like what's your income, what is like your mental state, why did you do it, that kind of stuff. So a judge is already making that decisions. And something that I wanted to comment on, like something that Spartacus was saying earlier, was that if you have like people that are like not being capable to being entered into society, we in the Netherlands, we actually have something called TBC, which basically means that this person has like a really long trajectory of like probably like 20 or 30 years that they are being kept in like a mental facility. And this is basically around like pedophiles, like people that are like multiple times of like assault, like people like that kind of stuff. People that are really hard to rehabilitate. And sometimes those people never get out of the systems, but they still get like they still can leave the premise sometimes and that kind of stuff, and it really works well, and research shows that. So
you're
there
right.
is
So like right now Like right now, pedophiles are being shivved in prisons, and they don't reach the end of their sentence because the prisoners decide to take it upon themselves to deliver punishment. So what I'm simply saying is that they would be held behind bars until there's a mandatory minimum of what they're going to serve as a mandatory minimum, and then they're going to be held behind bars until the system is sure that this person is rehabilitated, and this person is headed for success, and that this person is going to be this person is now going to be a benefit to society.
Yeah, and you can do that.
But if there's a mandatory minimum, so if the system decides or comes to the realization that this person is actually now going to be a benefit to society, is no longer going to commit these kind of crimes, if that happens within the mandatory minimum sentence, like halfway in, like they would still need to serve out the rest of the sentence.
Then you can apply for parole.
Right? Yeah, but they would still need to serve out the rest of the sentence, right?
You can apply for parole.
But that's still
you would serve out the rest of your sentence underneath parole.
I see.
Okay. All right.
I think it's kind of silly, but I understand where you're coming from.
I wanted to say this is not like chopping off someone's hand. I think would be kind of productive, not only for their rehabilitation, but for a lot of reasons. But there are some like pretty invasive procedures we can do that actually there's some evidence that shows they are beneficial. One of which is chemical castration or physical.
Yeah,
castration,
for rapists.
Specifically for pedophiles who molest children. That demographic of people. There's at least one study that indicated that when you castrate that group, the rate of like recidivism drops from like it was close to 50% to like 2. Like it drops like by a massive margin. And so like in a situation like that where we could they've already committed a crime and we can dramatically reduce their likelihood of reoffending. If our interest is in rehabilitation, what would be the issue with doing this? I mean, because
there'd be a huge issue because at a certain point you are violating. At a certain point, you're violating that person's right. You're violating that person's right to have kids. You're violating that person's right to have kids in the future if they want to. If they get fully rehabilitated, stop. If they get fully rehabilitated to where they are rehabilitated, they're going to be successful to society. They are now healthy. The mental disorder that they're suffering from is cured. And then they want to have kids, then I would have no problem with them having kids. The issue right now is that we don't have that rehabilitation for pedophiles. We don't have that magic cure. We don't have that magic medicine. We don't have any of that. We don't have that. So what I'm saying is that they would stay in prison until they're deemed to be rehabilitated and ready to go back out to society.
We don't have a way to rehabilitate them yet. So
we don't have a way to rehabilitate them. No, they would stay in prison. Yes, they would stay in prison waiting.
Wait, let me respond. I want to respond to your objection because couldn't you have a system where for that specific group of people, you would you would let them, I don't know, you gather sperm samples and put them like in a freezer. So if they ever wanted to have kids, they could, but then you would castrate them.
Lactoid, I think that the whole issue there is that if you are a pro-abortion or anti-abortion or whatever, right? I think that's what ties into this whole subject.
I want to be very clear. I want to be very clear. Abortion never had any play in what I was saying.
No. But I think that.
Hold on. Casimir, you're on the list, right? And I want to keep you on the list because you're gonna take a long time. So like I just want to get these other people through, right?
Require time.
Yeah. I know you're right.
No,
I appreciate your thoroughness, but like, go ahead.
I just want to answer. Like, if you talk about reproduction rights, right, and that kind of stuff, yes. I think that's putting your sperm into a lady, right? That's part of it. So if you are going to talk about like reproduction and that kind of shit, you know.
We
there you go.
We freeze the sperm.
If you're putting your frozen
I don't think that conservatives
one second. If you're putting your frozen sperm, if you are putting your frozen sperm into a woman and then you don't have like some
still
settled
frozen.
and you don't have like some settled
still
type
frozen.
Wait, stop. You don't have like some settled type of contract to where like she's like agreed to carry your baby to term, or like again granted
not what he's saying.
granted medical
but it's,
great
but it's podcast,
okay,
this is
wait,
not
wait,
this is
wait,
not
okay,
literal.
guys, Can I finish?
Guys, I don't know where I can
Granted
go
medical
over this.
wellness.
I don't understand this. My man Lactoid wasn't like talking about like forcing like random women to like give
my
birth
gosh.
to the babies of like violent pedophiles. That wasn't
Before it
his
escapes me.
scope.
They have a right to have a kid, an affirmative right to have a kid.
You do have reproductive rights.
That's not what
You
I'm
can't
saying.
violate
That's
their
not what I'm
rights,
saying.
Prime.
No, Lactoid, you do have reproductive rights.
Yeah, okay.
That's not
You
what I'm
have
saying.
not affirmative reproductive rights. You don't have the right to impregnate a
But it
woman.
doesn't mean the government gets to take them away.
It's not better by a random woman.
In what case today does the government take away reproductive rights outside of life and death sentences?
Specifically, reproductive rights.
Yes. In what case today does the government take away reproductive rights?
I
a lot of
honestly can't
cases
think
where
of
they
any.
should.
Abortion is what he does.
Because
Abortion,
it would
that's
be
what he does.
inhumane and it'd be inhumane and unusual punishment, right?
No,
no,
I don't think so.
So I
I think some
actually
people shouldn't be allowed to have kids.
So if you have a specific like demographic that has a 50% recidivism rate for a horrific crime, we're already violating their rights by putting them in a
They're
cage.
in prison until we figure that shit out.
Yeah, but the thing is, the problem is that for these people, we're never going to figure it out, right? They will.
How do you know that?
Because we
They
have
don't
the
Are we
have
never
numbers.
gonna figure out?
We have the numbers.
Are we
Their
never gonna
recidivism
figure out
rate's
cancer?
like 50%.
Are we never gonna figure out cancer?
The sprout,
Are we never
either
gonna
they
figure
die
out
in
diabetes?
prison or you chemically
Are we never gonna figure out
castrate them and they
diabetes?
get to live a
Look,
life.
I
Like, what's
appreciate the
what's
optimism, but like
problem
right
here?
now, we don't.
Are we
have a
never
solution.
gonna figure out coronavirus? Like, what are we never gonna figure out that there's not like an absolute cure to right now? What are we never gonna figure out?
There's a
Wait,
cure.
okay,
It's
wait,
chemical
I can
castration.
moralize this
Things we
too.
don't know about. It's
Wait, let me
Lactoid,
moralize.
would you be responsible for
No,
that decision?
Casimir, I promise.
No,
I'll put
no,
you-
it's
you're
just a
on the-
question.
No,
It's a question.
it's always just a question with you.
No,
Casimir,
no, it's a
Casimir,
Count 10 seconds in your mind.
Casimir. It won't be
Let
10
me ask him a
seconds.
quick question.
I
10
don't
seconds.
believe you. It won't be 10 seconds.
What do
I
you
will
mean you
give
don't
you the
believe me?
space.
Just count.
I will give you.
Promise.
I will give you the
10
space.
questions.
I'll give you. Shut
10
up, Cap.
seconds.
And
Come on.
is different.
Right,
trust it.
let take it to you, and you will have your space. Okay, I promise. All right.
I need a question right now. Lactoid, you castrate a pedo and later reprove them to be innocent. Like we proved that the evidence was planted on them, and we know for sure that they're no longer a pedo. Is the person responsible
10
for
seconds.
the castration? Should they in turn be castrated?
No, you pay the person who you castrated. You don't. No, you
there's
don't
no
castrate.
value on that.
Why did you
There's
report
no
for that?
value on that. How do you calculate the value of the payment? Are you
No,
can no longer have children. They're
That's it.
permanently
That's it. You
castrated.
got it.
30
You
seconds.
got it. I knew that wasn't going to be. I knew it wasn't.
I'll answer it though, real quick. So, my whole job is placing monetary values on like horrific incidents, right? That's the whole point. We have a civil justice system in America in which we allow people to sue because, hey, my balls got chopped off and that's worth this amount of money, right? That's what the value. There is some value of balls, okay? There's some monetary value in an actuarial table somewhere that you can prove, okay? I am fine with this system. And what I'm the moralizing, totally bad faith question I have for Sprouticus is how many kids have to suffer before we cure this cancer?
I mean, how many kids have to suffer?
Because the
I'm not-
recidivism
I'm-
rate is 50%.
So wait 1 second. They're gonna stay in jail. In jail, there's no recidivism
Isn't
rate
that
because
worse?
guess what? Minors don't go to adult jail. So now there's no recidivism rate. So now we're moving forward into a spot to where I'm not going to imprison someone prior to the crime.
What if we give them a choice?
I'm not going to imprison someone who's not convicted of a crime.
Wait, hold on. What if we give them a choice where they're like in prison for life because we got to protect the kids, but if they want to get it early, we can castrate them.
No.
All right.
There's still a certain.
I want to
What's
understand.
the percentage of recidivism in after castration?
So based on
I
the
believe
thing
you
that,
said
based on the study that I
believe
read,
you
it was
said the
2%.
percentage.
It went from 50 to 2.
2%. Okay, cool. So you're okay with 2% more child rapists raping children? I'm glad to hear that.
As opposed to 50, yeah.
I'll have them in jail. I'll have them in jail, and there'll be a 0% recidivism rate until we figure it out, right? And you enjoy that 2% and put your name on it, okay?
Okay, we're gonna leave that there. We're gonna leave that there.
Let's just have
Corey,
everybody
you're
in
on the
prison
list.
forever.
I gotta
So
go to.
amazing.
I'm gonna go
Let's
to
go, Spartacus.
Tiberius. Tiberius. Before Tiberius goes though, Lagwood, can you put a monetary value on Ty's testicles? Like what
They
that
beat me
be?
would
to
have to
it,
prove it
son
in
of a
court.
bitch. Literally in my notes. People have been asking. So yeah, how much are my balls worth, Lactoid?
Well, it depends how
literally-
much you use them and how you use them. Unironically, probably.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, if you prove you're a runner, your legs are worth more than a non-runner. So if you're like a total like Chad, your balls are probably worth more than if you're an incel.
Wow, fantastic. By the way, according to the US DOT, the average human being is worth about $11 million. Have fun with that information. Okay, so when it comes to the conversation of rehabilitative versus punitive justice, I definitely noticed, at least for me, it's a threshold, right? I'm highly rehabilitated when it comes down to something like, hey, this person stole $1,000 or maybe even Grand Theft Auto, right? These are things, they can be replaced. And, outside of the harm done of thievery, I'm not super concerned with this, especially when this is all something that I don't know why we don't all have like theft insurance, but apparently we should. So when it comes to that, that'd be nice. Where it gets crazy is where you get into the heinous stuff, right? If we could absolutely prove with 100% confidence that somebody murdered somebody else, I'm cool with turning them into fertilizer. But that's a whole other conversation entirely. Huh? Because it is punitive. It's just like, hey, look, you have violated.
Why should we punish people for crimes?
I look. We are not
Nobody's
going to
even. I've never heard a person ever answer that question with anything sensible. Just why should we punish people for crimes? Why is it good to cause more suffering in the world?
Deterrence.
It's not okay. So,
but it's not. You're not deterring people by virtue of the death penalty. No, the death penalty.
Not the death penalty, but punishment.
That's what Tiberius is advocating for.
Can I please
imagine if you have a machine?
Let Ty finish, and you're next. Okay.
All right. So, the ethical framework that I come from is largely a level of fairness and a little bit of purity here. So you couple these two together. It's basically when somebody comes through and violates a person, say they murdered another person, right? Is that they have demonstrated that they are no longer willing to give you, let alone other people, the right of like sovereign independence, right? At that point, they are a danger to not only the person that they've now wiped out of existence, they're still an existential threat to everywhere else around them. Just yeet the son of a bitch.
Look, you don't have people being more of a. You don't have people who are like a threat to the person they killed after they died. Like you're not a threat at all to the person you killed; they're dead. And you're not an existential threat to people around you either. Because it's just the case that there are plenty of other options that lead to a person having a better off life. You can keep a person in jail forever, and they're likely to save more lives just by virtue of the fact they'll make enough money to save enough lives than you would by killing them. It's easily the case with like $3,000 through like charities that go towards like malaria nets. $3,000 worth of labor, you could already save one human life. That person's work alone, let alone the joy that they might get out of their life, which I think is still important and valuable.
Look, I'm just going to be real with you. I understand how you want this to be a debate. It's not going to be. We are not going to agree on this. Just straight up, okay?
I mean, there's not. Yeah, you just be wrong on objective facts. Like if you think the morals
I
are
don't
just
really
your opinion,
give a shit, dude. Like if you just want to like base every moral principle you have on objective facts, then that's great.
It'll be super easy. It'll be super easy to, right? Yeah. So if all your morals are just your feelings, then there's no reason why your moral opinions are different than your opinions about strawberry versus chocolate ice cream, or why your moral opinions are any more grounded out than Hitler's moral opinions. There's just no point in caring about your it's just a feeling. If you're not a moral realist, if you can't ground it out in some way, then there's just nothing you've got there.
Tiberius, you should find time to talk to me, and I'll walk you through how you ground it. There's a great
look,
10
I know
seconds. Only take 10 seconds.
Yeah, no kidding. Look, I know there's levels to
it. It'll take like a 15-minute video and probably an hour discussion at least.
Okay, right. Let Ty make sure Ty gets it out, and then we'll go to you, Casper.
Look, is there ways to ground this? Yes. There's always ways to ground something in at least some of the moral efficacies that you can put out there, right? There's almost a foundation for a lot of even some heinous shit. I'm not going to go down that road. I know where that conversation goes. I'm just going to be calling Synth a piece of shit, and he's going to be calling me an immoral sack of shit.
No, I'll be giving you actual argument.
Right. I get no, like, yeah, because
Yeah.
it's not an argument, right? These are moral principles. Either you can like validate the others and like, hey, I don't agree with you, or you can sit here with a smug attitude being like, I'm just better than you. I don't give a fuck, dude.
Or
I
you can go
really
through the
don't.
process of how you verify different principles.
Yes, there are different ways of
entire
verifying
field of
principles.
metaethics.
We're not going to agree on those.
You wouldn't have to look. We would agree on those if we talked about them even a little bit, right? You just don't want to make any argument because you're not familiar with any of those.
Some of them I am, but like literally, we're just going to hijack the entire panel, and you've already done that well enough today. So I'd like to give that to like Chinchilla.
I love the animosity here. You just don't have an argument.
Let's go to
Casimir.
Yeah, because I'm not a
never
fucking
hijacked
debate,
anything
bro.
in his life. Okay,
I hijacked a lot of
Casimir.
things.
No.
But only voluntarily. You wanted Prime. You always ask for it. Now listen. I think that there is, in some sense, Synth is right, in some sense, Tiberius D is right. Assuming that they are willing to take the wager. Now, the real answer is that the family should decide. If there is a family or a guardian of the murdered person, and they believe that instead of prison as the punitive aspect of the response to the crime, the person should instead serve life in prison and make malaria nets, it should be the decision of the victim. If instead they want them locked in a room with no interaction with the reality at all for, until they die, that should also be the option by the family. And
Why?
I believe that the family inherits the right to make the decision. Now,
Casimir,
but
why?
But for Tiberius D, it's also very important. The person who makes the wager on the punishment, if the innocence is proven later on, has to, in my mind, to be ethically even, has to suffer the punishment that he definitely incur. We objectively know that they decided to, say, kill the killer, or to imprison them for life. And whatever punishment applied to the killer, if the killer is proved innocent, now should apply to the other person, because now the accused is the actual victim.
This is
and we know
no.
objectively.
No.
This
New
is
legal
another-
system.
Casimir,
This is another. This is
Casimir.
another 100% workable and cap.
Yeah.
Right, like this-
Casimir, why punitive instead of rehabilitative?
I believe that. Okay, let me explain it. We have an example. Let's say 100 gold coins are taken from you.
Wait. Okay, go ahead.
So you have two rights that are generated by that taking. One right is that you always had. There was no title transfer, so those gold coins belong to you. You get to go and take them back.
Why?
Because the title transfer was not legitimate. They weren't given to you.
Then why does
by
that mean that you get
contract.
Sure,
They're
I
not
get my
trading
property
with you.
back. In some way, I get my
you have
property
to get
back.
your
What's the other
property
option?
back, but then on top of that is the restitution. So we need to restore the situation to before the conditions of the crime. And there's two things that we're restoring.
You do understand that's restorative justice, not punitive justice, right?
Yes, there is the act, and then there's the intent. So the act of the crime has to be restored, which is the act of taking the money has to be restored. But then there's
Like-
the punitive.
Like
the
I don't
civil law.
think this is
Take their
Listen,
balls
listen,
and
listen,
put them
like,
on you.
Yeah.
Civil
listen.
law.
There is
Wait,
the-
civil
I don't
law.
think
Wait,
this is
stop.
restorative
Stop for a
justice.
second. Stop for a second because you're going so long. It's gonna be so many fucking points. I'm not gonna be able to respond to each
It's
one.
the second
Res-
half. It's the punitive that
Civil.
you're asking
Okay,
about.
then stop at the halfway. I'll listen to the half once I'm done. Civil law is restorative law. Civil law is very much about what did you
I don't
lose
care
and
about
how much
US
do we.
law. I'm
Wait,
talking
stop,
about
stop. Civil law is very much about what did you lose and how much do we restore. Civil law is restorative law. Criminal law at this time point is punitive law.
Before you
Yes,
before
I'm
you
saying
before you
that
say
they're
before you say a
combined.
thing before you say a thing, I do need to get this out because it's money. Thank you, Fondue, for another $5.
1,000 gold coins.
Thank you so much. Yeah, 1,000 gold coins. Oh boy. But Fondue gives another $5 on YouTube Super Chat. We do read YouTube Super Chats, so if you want to interject, that's a great way of doing it. They say here is some monetary value considering the rate of success of rehabilitation. At what point do we consider the cost is not giving back a return? Okay, yeah. So you're saying that rehabilitation, in at least in the American system, is a bit of a failure here. So that at some point, like we're putting too much money into the system and not getting enough back, like in a citizen that is fully functioning and
They're
participating
effective
society.
slaves.
Casimir, could you you can do both, right? Could you answer that question that this fondue person did, and then you can go into your own thing?
I think you should like ask a utilitarian. I think that I don't really know if that's like it's part of the argument. This is like you're trying to convince the actual victim of what is best to do. And if you're trying to do that, then you can use all of these empirical evidence of what's best to do. But I believe that, and this is what I'll try to ask Sprouticus, maybe because he volunteered. Sprouticus, in terms of punishment, if we had a machine that could flip the victim and the perpetrator of any crime, say if there is a murder, then the machine revives the dead and kills the killer. What argument would you use to prevent us from using that machine on the accused?
There wouldn't be an argumentation, but at the point in time we have right now, we're not bringing the dead back to life in a way in which they're not in a way in which they're not hurt, or in a way in which they're not like they're not still affected by the crime. So in your law and wait stop in your stop in your law world, this would work. But that's literally the only place it would work is your law world, because you're never going to find a machine that's going to be able to flip people places and be like, nope, instead you're the one that gets murdered.
Come on, just like engage in
This is
hypothetical.
fine. Let's make it.
I already did. I already said that this would be the best way forward.
Let's
But
make it realistic,
in his
Sprouticus.
law world, it's the only way it works.
Fine, you don't like hypotheticals. I'll make it a realistic one. What argument does the thief use to say after the money was already retrieved from the thief doesn't have the 100 gold anymore? What argument does the thief use to say you're not allowed, if the thief also has an extra 100 gold coins, what argument does the thief use to say don't steal my money, my gold from me?
Thief can make the argument it's not utility maximizing.
He
There's like an
can,
actual mathematical ground.
but what about
Stealing is
Sprouticus?
wrong. Stealing is wrong. That's why you wouldn't.
Unless it's through taxation.
They can
no,
argue
then
it's not. They can argue
especially
it's not
wrong.
money. They can argue it's not money that effectively came from the crime, and therefore the government cannot take it because it's not money that effectively came from the crime that was committed.
There's no government. There's just the victim is saying, well.
So who is the jurisdictive party?
You stole.
It can be
You
civil.
stole. The thief stole money. No, not you. The thief stole money, and so he believes that stealing at the moment of the crime, he believed that it's a correct action to do. I don't believe that the thief has any argument why the same particular amount of that resource should not be taken from them. They've already accepted that as fine.
What if he regrets it and changes his mind, right?
They've not accepted it as fine.
So I'm trying to find out your
Okay. Let's answer that specifically. Wait a moment. There's an answer. Here's the answer. Let's say that they change their mind. Okay, now imagine that the would-be victim does the same thing. They steal the money from that thief, right? And then they change their mind and they say, well, now that I've done this, then stealing is not okay.
There's no argument you're making here. You just stipulated a hypothetical. It'd be wrong for both of them to vote both of them to do the action of stealing.
Yeah, because stealing is wrong, right?
Stealing is wrong.
Not categorically. Obviously,
when you
stealing is
accept
sometimes
that.
okay.
Do you believe that when somebody rejects that with their actions, then they can then change?
Seems
and
like what
play
they've said is that
different
it's okay.
morals later on?
Well, of course they can change their morals later on, but if the person says it is still okay, it was okay for me to do that, that doesn't entail that it's okay for you to steal something back from them. There's no valid argument you can make.
This is why I didn't.
In the case that I thought it was okay in the context that I did it, I don't think it's okay for you to do it for me. And they could totally legitimately make this argument because somebody, for example, could be a poor person who needs to steal to survive, and they're stealing from like a rich person who does not need to steal the food back to survive. They'd be like, I need it to survive. You don't need it to survive. It's that simple.
I was going to go down the different
a
track here.
particular system.
Kai?
I was going to go down a different track here because on one side of this is like the purity of principle, and Lactoid seems to be coming from this side where it's just like, hey, look, we don't steal back from you because the action of stealing is inherently wrong. It's a purity unto itself on that, which I largely do side with those folks. The other ones it's the purity and principle in violation in the regards that if you are willing to violate the principle, why should we hold you to, or why should we enact the same standard to you? So if you're willing to steal from me, why can I not come back in an equal sense and just steal everything that you have, right? You've clearly demonstrated that you do not engage with that wall. So why should we honor it for you? I don't necessarily like the second of that ladder. I know there's some people who have that in their moral axioms. I try not to touch that one because it literally comes down to an eye for an eye or just an ever escalating war. And yeah, I think the Christians were right on this one. Turn the other cheek usually actually works out better.
Okay. Did anyone else want to jump in on this? Or?
Yeah,
It's not
sure.
a
Yeah.
Christian,
So the
though,
action
so
is
you have to find some other foundation, as Synth said. You're basically stuck between wishy-washy answers, since utilitarianism, or starting to read Hoppe and under post-Apel ANCAPs.
So I think that Casimir, in your view, it's not the case they what they owe you back is like the same monetary value for the monetary value itself, but they owe you back the same damage you've done to them, right? Casimir? Is that right?
Well, technically yes, but there's a problem that's if they don't have like the exact same item, then at that moment you would have to like approximate, and I think there's no like good coherent answer because nothing is the exact same value. So at that moment you would have to approximate for sure.
Yeah, you'd have to approximate, and there's a bunch of empirics we can use for making those approximations. But you understand that if you take $1 from a poor person, you've done more harm than taking $1 from a rich person, right?
I guess in terms of outcomes only, yes.
Yeah, so if a poor person steals $200 from you, if there's a sufficient wealth disparity, it would make sense that
Do outcomes matter?
Well, it would make sense that if there's a sufficient wealth disparity, they'd owe you less than $200 back total.
Well, yeah, but he argued in terms of
total.
outcomes.
No, hold on.
In terms of
That's-
outcomes,
that's
do
not-
outcomes matter?
Yeah, because it caused the most harm.
No. His point would be that you owe the 200 back, but like the interesting question is, do you owe another 200 on top of that?
No, you'd have to say that you don't owe
even if
anything
they're
because the
poor?
only grounding for the owing the $200 back is because it's equal harm, which is not equal harm. You've harmed the poor person more by taking the $200 back.
Well, no,
we
the
have to-
$200
They
the
harmed you
$200
return the
is
thing
the
that's
property
not
of the original
transferred
person.
correctly.
No, it's a different $200. They spend it, and you're saying you're going to take a different $200 back. It's
No,
gone,
it's
right?
the
You're saying
same.
they owe you $200 back. Nope, we're taking. They
It's
take
not
that
the same.
$200.
Even the American
those two
legal system
Benjamins,
agrees
those
it's not
two-
the same. That's why criminals can earmark money and say it's not money that directly got from the crime because it's not. It's just not the same. You
Yep.
can't argue it's the same when even the American legal system agrees that it's not the same money.
Well, you're
It's two
you're
different
factually wrong.
bills.
Hold on,
They
you're factually
they
wrong
spin
about
the
that.
bills away.
Well,
They
hold on.
spin the bills away for the sake of the hypothetical.
Hold on. So real quick, first of all, you're wrong on that. Like especially when people are arrested for like drug crimes, like they will have all of their assets seized, and they can't hire a lawyer. Like there was people at the public defender's office who were qualifying, who were like these massively wealthy drug dealers because they had everything confiscated. Because
Don't know how that contradicts with.
Do we need to talk about the Alec Murdoch case?
I don't know, but since what I don't understand is like the thought that like money derives itself from an individual bill rather than like all bills. Like
value.
Well,
it
no, I
doesn't-
agree. The whole reason I'm bringing it up is because for Casimir, it's not the physical dollar value itself that's morally relevant. It's the harm caused, and the harm caused when a poor person takes $200 from a rich person is nearly nothing. Yeah,
No,
Casimir,
no,
it's the
it
dollar
is- no,
spent.
it's the
You
other way
want
around, I'm
you want
sorry.
an equivalent dollar. You want an equivalent dollar value. You want it to be equivalent in terms of harm.
No, it's not. Again, it's not value. The optimal case is to restore the situation to the way it was before. And so the problem with the reason why I use gold coins, it has to be something that is actually like fungible and it has a concrete value. Because paper money is sort of weird.
You mean
But
non-fungible?
it is the real question. I don't think in my mind, there's no question you have to return what you stole.
Well, hold on. I want to engage with this before you move on. So if it's the case that the reason why you think it's bad is because you have to restore the other person to their original position, if it's the case that you,
No.
if it's the case you steal food from them, what do you return back to restore it? Because you can never give the same food back.
So the problem is the cost of figuring that out, and the cost of the inaccuracy in the value should be upon the criminal. So they would have to. I would say that what you would be able to do is to pay somebody to follow them around, and if they try to if they owned nothing, right, and they stole food from you, and you wanted to be really vicious in your punishment, you would follow them around, and as soon as they picked up an equivalent thing.
So you're irreparably harming the. You're irreparably harming.
The other thing, therefore, I'm going to take it. And there's no argument against that.
You're irreparably harming.
I gotta spend my time
person.
following around a homeless guy. I have much better things to do with my time.
This is
The
all
thing
kinds
is,
of
the thing is,
wonderful.
you're irreparably harming the poor person there.
There is all kinds of wonderfulness
That's why you
in
have
this
time-saving
argument.
devices
But I
like
also like the
collective
idea
defense
from Synth
and
that like
insurance.
this food is irreplaceable, right? So this is like they happen to steal from you a one-of-a-kind wedding cake, right? That was on your wedding day. It's like after the wedding day, it loses its value, and like the artist died, and so you can't have that exact wedding.
We'll get
cake.
it back
So-
eventually. We'll get it
That's
back
correct
eventually.
crime.
Yeah.
There's like a hierarchy
it's
of
fun.
principles here. If he has the exact same
Follow
group,
around the poor
and there's no
person.
argument
They'll
why
find
you
the wedding
should have
cake
it,
again.
While in Syn's system, you do. But there are costs to each system. The cost in my system is if you still hold to the same item, you have to return it. The cost in Synth and Sproutacus and Tiberius system is that they could argue for utility that the cake is so valuable, instead of returning the cake, we'll put you in prison for life.
No.
Okay.
What? How is that a by my system? Obviously, that would
No
be
one
utility
said a
maximized.
life sentence for stealing cake.
Before we move on, can I just my position on this is that I think Casimir is absolutely right that the point is to restore somebody to as best we can to where they were before. This is why I didn't agree with the whole well you got to castrate the person who castrated you. That does nothing to restore your balls. It's not particularly effective. But like if you steal someone's car, it's perfectly reasonable that like yeah you make this person buy you a new car, and if they can't afford it, they got to like work off their debt until they can afford to buy you a car. That's the
What
most
if the
Previous
only way for them to
argument,
get? What if they have the
So
money in
answer
their?
the hypothetical,
What if they
Lactoid.
have the money? What if they have the money in their PayPal account, but it's the money they need for rent and the money they need for healthcare, and the only way they can give you it back?
why'd they steal my
Yeah,
fucking car?
It's $5. No, hold on. It's $5 they needed to buy. Sorry, $45 they need to buy
$5 car?
insulin. Hold on. Listen, Lactoid. Listen to the hypothetical. They steal $45 from you, right? Track it, right? $45 from you, and then they need that to go to Walmart to buy their insulin. So another option is either they can give you your $45 back, or they can die. What should they do?
Yeah, that's their problem. Why'd they steal my fucking $45?
Sorry. So what they should do is what? Listening.
Die.
Listening. Die. There you go. Okay.
$5, guys.
I would love
So
ACAP
you
prescriptions.
think
It's so
you- wait,
insane.
wait, you think
Why
this
should
is
look,
crazy?
look,
Wait,
here's
wait,
my
wait,
question.
wait,
Here's
you
my
think
follow-up
this-
question.
no,
Why
no,
should I
no,
care about
before you
any of
let me
this?
answer this.
The
Jesus
environment and
Christ.
their inability to
Wait,
survive without being
no.
a parasite.
Okay, so no.
That's the thing that
Lactoid.
killed them.
It was
Yeah.
directed to Lactoid.
Yeah.
Lactoid.
I just want to know why I should value it.
Shut
things,
up,
two
Casimir.
things.
Lactoid.
Yeah,
go ahead.
people. So I perfectly accept this that you can use like forces of defense to defend yourself if someone's coming after to jack your shit. If you see somebody stealing your car or you're breaking into your house or whatever the fuck, you should be able to use force to defend yourself.
Yeah,
And if somebody is like they stole $45 from you, yes, they should have to pay it back. Now, I think they should just have to fucking pay it back as soon as possible. But I could, as a compromise, see maybe some kind of practical scenario where like they get put on a payment plan so they can afford their insulin now and then have to pay me back in the future. I don't know, something along those lines. But at the end of the day, I'm getting back my $45 with interest. Like needs to
I
happen.
was gonna ask about that. Like, should we like in this system? Well, not Casimir system, but like, should like people have to pay back interest?
Well,
For
of course.
Okay.
It crosses a line for me personally.
Lactoid, can you answer the hypothetical with the flipping machine on any of the crimes we mentioned?
So the only reason why I'd be okay with the flipping machine is because it would.
You would be okay with the flipping machine?
Well,
So
only
you're fine with
only because it would like the person victimized would not be made any worse off than they were before, right?
They would be fully restored.
Yeah, they'd be
They'd
fully
be made
restored.
full.
And that's what I'm concerned with, right? My concern is making victims to where they were. I don't really care about like we got to take their balls. Like I don't. Who cares?
Well,
okay,
let's
all right.
make
So
it-
sorry.
Can
We got.
cut off
Sorry.
their balls
No.
and give them to the victim?
I don't think that works.
We're moving on.
If
We're
it
moving
works,
on.
Regardless,
We're
they
moving
wouldn't be
on.
my balls. Okay,
We-
that's not my kids coming out. Okay.
We
And
are.
cat prescription and cat
grasp
paternal
on.
epic.
Why now you give him your balls? Do it.
We
Yes, if
And-
it worked like that, sure.
he can
Okay,
keep them
good.
in a jar and appreciate them for all the time, passing down as family heirlooms.
Stare at them in my basement.
Oh God! All right. Well, this has been weird. And I want to make it clear, right? All of this is Corey's fault.
Yeah, I was gonna
Right?
say. So, I almost gonna say sorry. I almost regret.
Yeah, he talks about some MDMA bullshit, and then of course, that leads to discussion of the age of rape, the age of acceptable rape.
Yeah.
But okay.
And then I
It's
brought in
Why did you
the
not see this
reproductive
coming, Corey?
rights.
This is
She would
clearly
rape a murderer.
responsible.
Yes, as
for-
punishment
Wait,
for murder.
Prime,
Yes.
are we out of time to talk about the Canada euthanasia for hearing loss and PTSD thing?
That
Let's-
is
let's-
not accurate, but okay.
That is accurate. Canada has euthanized people for a singular cause of hearing loss.
We'll have to maybe like I think euthanasia is a fun topic. I mean, fun for me, not for them. But like,
Jeez.
I think we could maybe make this a discussion, like a full-blown discussion later on.
Okay.
Like in a different reverie. Send me an
Okay.
article. Send me an article so that I can make it a topic.
Okay, we'll do.
But okay, so we're gonna move on to our next topic. But first of all, guys, if you've been enjoying all of this, this has been wild. We should maybe do free discussions more often because I didn't expect this. But anyway, if you enjoyed this, hit that follow button. If you're on Twitch, we'd love to have you. What was it? Like 77777 Poppy. Thank you for joining up. And then they say in chat, fun for Prime if it's white people. What? Oh, you mean the euthanasia? No. Certainly not, right? Certainly not. Especially if we're including white women, then it's like torture for me. Like what? But anyway, so but hit the follow button.
That's priorities.
Yeah, hit the follow button.
Prime, I really don't like it when you're racist, you know?
I okay.
He's been anti-racist here, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Like
On Twitch he is, but in real life he isn't. So there you go.
Let's and if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and consider helping us out, whether you're on Twitch or on YouTube, by supporting this channel, either by subbing to this channel on Twitch. That's how we power all this. So consider doing that. You'll get our emotes and get our free viewing. And you'll be keeping us up and running. If you're on Amazon Prime, says Prime Gaming, use that one free sub per month here on this channel if you feel it gives you value. So consider supporting us that way. On YouTube, super chats are super appreciated. So consider doing that. If you're watching this later, I guess the super thanks, that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, help out the channel so that I can come back, bring more of this madness to for you, if you might appreciate that. Okay, so let's go to our set topic. France has just emerged from over a week of riots. The riots were sparked when a 17-year-old boy of Algerian descent was killed by police. The damage done by the riots might be over $1 billion. This has sparked soul searching over what is the underlying cause of the violence. One cause that has been put forth is uncontrolled immigration. Europe, and France specifically, has seen a substantial demographic shift. Is it fair to place even part of the blame on immigration? Has Europe allowed too many people to enter at too quick of a pace? Or is there another cause that we should look to for the unrest we see across that continent? So I'm sure you guys heard about the riots. We talked about them a little bit, I think, here on this channel. But unfortunately, a young boy was killed by the police, French police. This time not like American pigs, but the French police. And like the response was huge in the French suburbs, which are like reversed from how it is here in the States, where like the suburbs are poorer than like the actual city. They were lots of unrest, buildings burnt down, the usual stuff, right? And so, but people are trying to figure out like what was the cause, what should be blamed, how should we handle this in the future? And I'm curious what you all have to say about that. So we'll start with my man, Lactoid.
Yeah, so the issue here is somewhat partially immigration, but I think this is primarily about left-wing agitation and violence. This story is pretty familiar, right? You have the story of a 17-year-old boy being killed by police, and people immediately assume a whole bunch of things about it, but the story is actually far more complicated than the rioters are letting on. And particularly reminiscent of America during the BLM riots, people will hear something bad happening. They'll knee-jerk react and burn down entire cities when the truth is far more complicated. In this case, when you actually go through all the facts of the matter, it is much more complicated, and the police aren't necessarily, it's not black and white. The police aren't necessarily, they are just fucking not justified. They have arguments, and there are, I'm not saying they're sufficient, but there are justifications. The rioters are taking this very far. They are using car bombs. They're attacking government buildings. Again, all of this very familiar. And it's not the people that tend to be doing this, right? Are people who, again, are sort of embracing left-wing agitation and violence, and people who are more apt to see themselves as victims and embrace social justice lenses of viewing the world are indeed immigrating into Europe and America in higher numbers. And at least in France, this has the unfortunate added component that these demographics are also more likely to be engaged in criminal activity per capita. This is absolutely the case in France. This is also the case in Sweden. I think one of the solutions here needs to be a greater cultural emphasis on self-sufficiency and a very strong social pressure to assimilate, which I think market forces can help with.
Okay, thanks so much. Market force. Casimir, let's go.
I think this is one of the part and parcel consequences of accepting the social contract and then not isolating your society from people who don't accept it and from ideologies that don't accept it. And so that's what we're going to be observing increasingly in the world. The main reason why the rioters could do as much as they did was because they relied on the cops that they're forced to use as their only security service, and they have no other choice in France to provide their own security for themselves. In the United States, we've experienced something very similar in the summer of 2020. But we did see a completely different result of that experiment, which is there were neighborhoods where people of various categories, ethnicities, stood side by side with guns and protected their neighborhoods from the rioters. And there were other neighborhoods that were disarmed, just like in France. And the disarmed people observed as the cops, or as the pigs, as Prime eloquently put it, were lined up on the sideline. And from the trial of Kyle Rittenhouse, we also knew now that an FBI helicopter, some kind of a flying thing or a plane, was looking down on those people like rats in a little experiment. And
some kind of a flying thing?
Yeah, I don't know what it was. Maybe a drone, maybe a plane. Doesn't matter. But there was an eye in the sky who was recording that experiment, just like in the rat experiment. And the government has established that experiment. What if we take all of the monopoly on violence in a particular American city or in France, and then allow violence to occur as the government does allow in this case? The French president, at the moment of these riots, was filmed out in some concert on some party, listening to Elton John. He could have declared national emergency, moved in with his glorious troops, or the Foreign Legion that can deploy anywhere in the world in a matter of hours, right? And done, committed violence in the name of the state. But he did not. Because the social contract is actually a fraud. It's only enforced down to the local level by you protecting your family and then grouping up with people in your neighborhood to protect what's yours.
Okay. Let's go to Corey.
Okay, well, I'll be brief. I'll try to be brief. So I agree with some of the things that, or just one of the things that Lactoid laid out in terms of there's probably an element of immigration at play, but whether it's a major element, I don't think so. But I tried to do some research to maybe get some answers, but maybe I'm just bad research and come up with a lot of good answers. As it answers specifically the prompt, is it fair to place even part of the blame on immigration? Maybe part of it, but I don't think the majority of it. And overall, I think it just boils down to what is a cause of rioting, or the rioting in this case. How much is it motivated by the actions that took place as a result of, that police incident, or how much is it driven by, people just looking for an excuse to riot for other social or political factors? I don't actually know, but that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it for now. Pretty much that's where I'm at.
Kai.
Yeah, this one will be fun. Another ethnicity and race conversation. I'm sure me and Prime are going to agree on everything. Anyway, so France. I always love to bag on the French, even though my ancestry is French, because once again they have screwed the pooch a little bit here. Do they have a culture problem? Do they have like a race confrontation here? Yes, although I would very much put it in an ethnicity conversation, especially for them. We'll unpack that in the open, but the long and the short here is this. Number one is that for anyone who is like wanting to get like good data on this and, do your research and be like, hey, there's a serious problem here. It is constitutionally illegal to collect ethnic data within the Republic of France. Can't even fucking touch it. All right. So if anyone wants to say like we have this problem and it's this big and that prolific, we can't touch it. We don't know the data. So we know that there are a number of people throughout the former French colonies, particularly North Africa, who have come into France and literally not just them or their parents, but their grandparents were made French citizens. They've been there that long, but they're still not seen as ethnically French. And we know that has been pouring over into being a problem. I will unwrap everything else when we get into Syrians and everybody else in the open, but simply say this. Is there a problem? Yes. Did the response from the police be absolutely heinous? Fuck yes. But when it comes down to it, like there is so much to open up in this can of worms. I can't even begin to start, so I just gotta pass it. Thank you.
Thank you. Synth.
Framing this as something which is caused by immigration is like it's such a stretch. It's very clearly not the proximate cause. And if anything, Morocco and Algeria in particular, being this kid, the fucking ethnic background this kid descended from, like both places that were invaded by France, it seems very strange to say that he doesn't have a right to be in France. Clearly, France wanted Morocco and Algeria to be part of France. So I guess he does have a right. But no, he's of French descent. It'd be very strange to say that the people from your from territories that you conquered can't be part of your country. Very, very strange. But clearly that's not the cause of these riots. Nothing to do with immigration, other than maybe like a very, very tangential connection. The real cause of the riots, the fact that police openly and blatantly lied several times, and then several videos came out. They openly and blatantly lied in a way that was going to make people upset anyways. They said that, oh, well, he was going to drive over us, so we had to shoot at the kid. And like, okay, well, that's like, people are already going to be upset about that. But then when videos came out showing they were blatantly lying about these, the cops weren't in a position where they could have been run over. Instead, they were off to the side of the car, and the car was zooming away from them as they were shooting at it. It made it very, very clear that people were going to be extremely upset about this because the police publicly lied to the people. There's nothing wrong there's nothing wrong with being upset about this. The police clearly did something very morally heinous. It's clearly understandable that people are rioting. Now, the riots, to my knowledge, have killed nobody yet, but the police did kill a 17-year-old. And that's probably a lot more important than if immigrants are causing this. I think it's the lies told by the police that caused this, blatantly.
Thank you so much, Sprouticus.
I think if you look seriously at the French and look at the French history, you're gonna see that it very much is so a ethnicity thing. If French are very particular about ethnicities, if a soccer player kicks a game-winning goal, then that person is French. But if a soccer player absolutely fucks up a game, then that person is just a Moroccan or just a French Territorian. Like they're not actually French. So French has a very, very like weird thing with ethnicity. But it's definitely part of an ethnicity thing. It's also part of a police thing. The police were sitting there calling like their people vermin, and calling their people like basically just like this insect we need to get rid of. So both play a factor. And if anyone's going to say that either one doesn't play a factor, then they're just lying to you or they're ignorant of the facts.
Okay. Let's go to Chinchilla. And we never gave Chinchilla a proper introduction, but thanks for being here, Chinchilla, a kind mod in our community. Who stepped in at the last minute. Our other person could make it. But he's our resident European. So thank you.
Yeah, and I actually I studied some European law, international law, and Dutch law, so I might know a little bit about this. But I don't know about French law, so I know the history, the concepts that they have, the traditions that they have, but I don't know like the exact like rules and that kind of stuff. But that being said, like overall, like if you talk about like European law and immigrations on that front, like I can say you that it's like in the 90s we tried to harmonize like our like immigration laws, making it one law basically. But until this day, this didn't happen because of the fact that all these European countries are independent countries with their own sovereignty, and they are not like the United States, where they are like in a federation of like countries, right? To put it in your kind of like reference of frame as an American viewer. That being said, like when it comes to the whole French stuff, like there was like 2 weeks of French like protests when it came to their like they changed the wood of the camembert, like what it was like packaged in, so the cheese camembert, if you know that. So like the French are really known to protest overall, and this is because of the fact that they have like a more of a presidential system where the president holds a lot of power. And that invokes some issues because of the fact that the only way to get your way is basically to go out there and protest. When it comes to the whole immigration issue, it's true that Moroccans that live here for like 3 generations, even in the Netherlands, or even 4 generations within the Netherlands, and the same is within France, they are not being considered Dutch or French or whatever, you know. So that's a real major issue because of the fact that they are just not apparently being assimilated within our own culture, and that's kind of bad because of the fact that you Americans, you do it the good way, because depending on your skin color, it doesn't matter. You're American. You're not, you're not French. You're not whatever, you know. So that's a big issue, which we have to contemplate within our own countries over here in Europe.
Casimir, I didn't mean to deny your Europeanness. So I apologize for that. I didn't realize until just after I said it.
Well, is Tiberius how European is he? Like
how
what
Tiberius?
Like whatever we're talking about, Kashmir is European.
Is it Casimir?
Like Casimir? You're born in Europe and live
Casimir
in
is
Europe?
only European heritage. We'll talk about it later in the.
Yeah, no, fuck you. Then you're not European. Fuck you. Yeah, this is Tiberius is European and as well. Sprouticus is European as well. Corey Campbell, Corey Campbell is European. Lectoid is European, and I don't know. I don't know about saying
I'm
that.
actually European. Okay, I'm a citizen. So
no, you're Canadian.
I'm a
That's the
fully
same thing.
fledged 7th generation American. Please, thank you, and good night.
Yeah, you're European, Tiberius. Super
I'm
European.
European. Wait! How dare
No,
you
just
associate with me with such trash? What is going
you're
on?
You dirty French boy. Go
You're
eat
a
your baguette.
fucking colonizer is what you are, Tiberius. All right, let's move on to
Of
Doobie.
course, you would go there.
Please, Doobie.
So I don't think that there's any evidence that this has anything to do with like immigration or ethnic issues in France. Other than it seems like there are agitators in the media and like far left groups in France who are kind of using the story and the fact that he happens to be black to make this about that. But it seems like the reality is this is about somebody who had shown like blatant like disregard for the law in the country that he was in. I don't think that has anything to do with his culture or his race. I think that he's just a person who didn't give a fuck about the law, right? He, 17 years old, had like 15 incidents in his record with the police, including multiple for resisting arrest, including one the prior weekend. He was not supposed to be even driving a car because he had multiple charges against him or like incidents where he like violated their traffic codes, and he was driving without a license and driving with a fake license plate and evading the police and all this kind of shit. So this is a person who shouldn't have been driving in the first place. Prior to the video, he actually did run from the police again. Right, which is why they were on the car in the first place. Right, they tried to pull him over. He ran away from the police, endangered multiple civilians in trying to run away from the police. And then when they stopped him, he chose to hit the gas with the cop leaning on his car with a gun pointing at him. So it seemed like this is just a case of someone being a stupid kid. I struggle to call him a kid, a stupid person, right? Doing dumb shit and getting consequences for it. I mean, this is kind of what happens. And I think that has been taken and created and being made into like a race issue, like we see happen here in the United States all the time. People get consequences for behaving stupidly, and it turns into like a race issue because it's beneficial to certain political groups in the country. I think it's exactly what's happening in France.
It's not.
I want to clarify.
I have to clarify a couple things real quick. Two people have died
Corey?
in riots so far. Just want to point that out.
Corey. Okay, that's all. All right, then Corey, then Ty, and who else?
100 people.
So yeah, just to I want to
110 people or 100 people
died.
Okay.
According to Lactoid, you have to calculate based on their value. 1 billion divided by 10 million or 11 million per person is close to 100.
Shut the fuck up, let people
What are you
talk.
talking about?
What is that math problem?
What? Confused.
No.
So two people have been killed in the riots.
Disregard
A
it.
cop got shot by a shotgun. He had to go in for surgery. Like over 40 officers have been injured, a lot requiring surgery. Car bombs have been targeted at government buildings.
Okay,
I mean,
that's
it's pretty hardcore.
Yeah, so Lactoid, if I remember correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, like during your opening statement, I think you mentioned something like whatever, there's an element of left-wing agitation or like the rioters, I think you mentioned, could be wrong, that like the rioters composed largely of like left-leaning people or a certain demographic. Do you have any evidence to back that up, or like any sort of, like how are you coming to that conclusion?
Can I get that question? Maybe because of the fact that the issue here is that France doesn't report like on ethnic basis stuff like how Tabayr is like mentioned, like basically
It's
like
illegal.
how the French, it's illegal. So you have like this thing called like within the US you have this like color policy versus color blindness thing, right? And French is like basically far on the color.
I didn't mention anything about race though.
No, wasn't that your question? Wasn't that the ethnicity and that kind of stuff?
No, it was not. Unless I misspoke and talking about like.
Sorry. Can you reframe your question then?
Yeah.
Because
like,
I just
I think if I remember correctly, like Lactoid mentioned like left-wing agitation, as in political affiliation. So I'm curious, like how you come to that conclusion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the first thing is the fact that they don't take that that kind of information immediately sort of makes me skeptical about any claims they make, right? Because they're willingly sacrificing truth in exchange for some kind of like social vision that they have. The other element here is, we can see like what the calls are, right? The calls are very much like a social justice oriented lens, which is we have the evil police, we have the evil French, we have like the France that is racist, that is xenophobic, and it's the police very similarly, right, are out here targeting these people and killing them, right? That's kind of
and that's why I mentioned race.
Right, because the racial element does have to do with this, because this has to do with like the left-wing agitation is just like Doobie said, like highlighting this case in order to accomplish that particular goal.
Okay, so I'll just try to distill my question to like zero. So do you have any evidence that points to the fact that pretty much the demographics of the rioters, they identify as left-leaning?
So I don't have a survey or study. I assume.
Okay,
hold on, real quick. I also want to point out, at the beginning of the BLM riots, I didn't have a survey that they were left leaning, but like this sounds like infinite skepticism, right? We're going to assume. Are we assuming that they're right wing?
How do we know that they're human?
I have no problem pleading ignorance of like I don't know their political affiliation.
Come on, Corey.
No, this
lizard people.
Corey, you might be onto something because of the fact that what you're saying, are they left or are they right? Is it left agitation or whatever? No, that necessarily doesn't mean so, because of the fact that there are like a lot of people that are probably like participating in the demonstrations against like Macron because of the fact that he is left-leaning himself, but there are a lot of people that are, but yeah, the metrics aren't there, so it's like really like hard to say so. But overall, it's like I think the demographic that is participating in these riots are like from like Paris, and they are from the bad neighborhoods of Paris. And the suburbs, which are basically congregated around like Paris, which, like Prime said earlier, like they are not like neighborhoods of Paris, but they are basically like grown to Paris, you know. So they are basically like neighborhoods of Paris.
Is
So, but
this the right wing
it's
Can we
it's like
address something
it's
that was
basically
measured?
like
Come on.
Is
Can
this
we address
is
something
this
that was
moderates
there
doing
was-
this?
There
As
was a
far as
data
what I-
point that was shown to us, and people dismiss the data point as if it doesn't matter. We have a measurement of an approximate value based on some crazy market calculation that 1 billion worth of damage was done. Now I understand you don't understand what it means. It's hard to, it's natural to understand. Imagine this. There is a guy in one part of France that lived a perfect life, went to church, had a job, was very productive in the society, and accumulated a lot of, the resources, these bonus points of capital, and decided towards the later half of his life, after doing a lot of productive work for others, to open his own business, to open a little bakery, somewhere in the northern France. And he built that bakery entirely through voluntary transaction with members of his community. And then somebody in a different part of France gets killed.
This is not a Rittenhouse debate,
by
bro.
Police. And then some other people in some other part of the country decide to burn that person's business down. And we don't equate that to the killing of that person, but he is effectively dead. His life's work, all of his sacrifice, is gone. And if he commits suicide, we'll understand why. So that's the value of that 1 billion.
Okay, this is why you're not a European, because this is not a Rittenhouse debate about like how business versus life versus like whatever, It's not about defending. This is not about defending capital. This is not about like capital. Talking about like. No, I actually agree with you, but you're just making it about a Rittenhouse debate. This is like stupid.
Okay, so we're gonna move past this.
Value humanity. You're anti-human.
Past this.
So we're gonna move
This
past
is
this.
why this question is very important. The criminals are
going to
demonstrating
tie-
anti-human
I
values.
actually
And then
agree
we're
with
gonna
you.
go to
Kismet.
Corey. Hey,
But
knock it off. Ty, Corey.
All right.
Yeah, go
Okay. So anyway, what Doobie said, I in his opening, I kind of have to agree with here. But there's a level where the rubber does meet the road for me, and so is this some level of like left wing agitation from like talking points and demagoguery? Sure, it is. The problem is that why did the proverbial fuse light, right? Because at least from what I'm or the people that I'm hearing from on the ground, like, yeah, there is protesters that are left wing and counter protesters that are right wing, but there are sizable folks that would be considered non-French who are participating in this, and they definitely seem to be to one side. We can get into all those details if we need to. What I'm simply saying here is that at the outgo, yeah, I largely agree with this kid was asking for fucking trouble, right? The response from the police was a disaster. Like, if you wanted to convince people you are racist as hell, that is the way to do it. So, quite honestly,
Call your own
everyone's a
people
schmuck.
vermin.
No.
What was wrong
Like,
with
what
the
was it
response?
they said? Like, I'll have
And
to
then you
dig it
go
up in
out
my
and kill
notes.
innocents, and then you go out and burn the businesses of innocence. Yes.
Something about like I'm going to shoot you or something. I forget, but Lecter, you had a direct response to him.
Well, so when you say the response of the police, like are you talking about the shooting or are you talking about the words? Because
The words. There was a
Okay.
statement they put out. I'm trying to find it real quick because it was fucked.
Sure,
yeah,
yeah.
it
You
was a statement.
you can say
Shooting
like
was
the,
clearly
you can say the
unjustified,
words
right.
are like bad, and I might even agree with you depending on what they are.
No,
They
but
were
I'm
lies.
not
I
the
just-
real
I-
victims.
it's
What they
so
were
weird.
lies.
Right. They
Do
very
you
well
care
maybe,
about the
right?
real victims?
But
Lecter?
what I'm concerned about is like people who don't appreciate that a car is a deadly weapon. That's like the weirdest thing to me. People like
Do you
can't
think
wrap
that somebody?
people
Do
can't
you
wrap
think that
their
somebody
head around that
brandishing a firearm? Yeah. Do you think if somebody's brandishing a firearm, if they have a firearm out in the open, right, and maybe they're being dangerous with it, do you think that justifies killing the person?
If they're brandishing it at people, yes.
Yes, if they're
No,
brandishing
they're not
a
pointing at
firearm
people. They're
that
brandishing the
justifies-
firearm.
Okay,
understand?
but when you're
If someone,
fucking- when you're
if
driving
firearms to be
over,
brandished.
listen,
when you're-
if
when you're
I'm on the
driving-
road, if I'm on the road and someone's tagging my ass and then comes up beside me and brandishes their firearm, yes, that justifies me
Yes.
shooting them.
That's because you think they're going to kill you. You think the chance of them killing you is extremely
Yes, and most
high. If you
times
see
people
somebody
brandish their firearm.
brandishing a firearm alone,
Most
that's not
of the time,
should
people would brandish their
kill someone.
firearm. That is a threat of lethal force.
Yes, and
It
if you
depends on the
and we know that
communication.
this guy.
It's
We
what
know
is
this guy was in a
communication.
high-speed
This is what
pursuit.
Synth is telling
Of
you.
course that
It's
isn't.
communication.
You flashing.
If you
If somebody says, "I'm going to beat your ass," and you flash your gun, do you think they'd be justified in killing you?
If it is,
Yes.
No, whoa, wait. So in that
it's
case,
communication.
I hear a yes.
In that case, in
it's
that
communication.
No.
Their
Here's
communication.
some weights.
Lactoid respond. Hold on. Lactoid.
in that
If
case,
you do,
in that
then they
case,
do.
flashing
Lactoid
in
respond.
that case, flashing the gun is like merely a means of trying to defend yourself against the threat of them aggressing upon you. In this particular case, this kid was fleeing from the police at high speed.
Wait.
He put two pedestrians in danger, a cyclist and a pedestrian. He put their lives in danger, and then they stopped him, and then he slammed on the gas again. This person had demonstrated they were using
How
the car
in
as a
danger
de-
does somebody's
a
life
dangerous
need to be
weapon.
before you can kill them?
To clarify, I misunderstood
in
that
danger
question.
do you
I
need
thought
to
the
put
person
somebody
saying
else's
that. I thought
life
the
before they
person
can
saying
kill
that they were gonna beat your ass had the gun and was brandishing the firearm. I misunderstood the question to begin with. So.
Okay.
I think if
So
if
what is the
somebody
percentage chance of somebody killing you that you have to have it? What's the credence you have to have of they're going to hurt you before you can kill them?
So this is going to be like on a case-by-case basis. If somebody's acting intentionally or recklessly, and putting your body at risk of great bodily harm or death, and the only way to stop it is by using lethal force, I think you're justified in using lethal force. There are edge cases.
What risk? How much risk?
The percentage of risk. I don't have a percentage off the top of my head.
Give
What
it
it's
approximate.
What it's going to be. No,
If it's a 1% chance, that's sufficient. Yes or no?
What it's going to be. What it's going to be is going to be like a case-by-case basis of, if I look at a situation where somebody's like flipping around a gun, and like the reasonable belief there from other people is that this person is recklessly or intending to kill them, then yeah, you have the right to use lethal force to stop them. This is going to be entirely case.
If there's a 1% chance, can you kill them?
It's not a chance.
They're speeding. If somebody's speeding,
determined
and
if
somebody's speeding, and the only way you're gonna be able to stop them is to
reasonably
kill them, should you be able to do
communicated
that?
with the other person. It's the reasonableness of the
What's
the
your
case of
percent?
somebody-
What's your percentage?
if it's
I don't have a
reasonable to
percentage.
believe-
My
So
percentage
you
is
have-
it has to be
if you're
it has
in
to
a
be good.
subway
It has to be a net
train
positive
car,
unexpected
and
value.
you
So it has to be
say,
above
I'm going to
50%.
kill people in the subway train car, but you don't brandish any weapons. But you yourself can be the deadly weapon. You yourself can be intimidating. If you convince one other person,
Show those arms.
and witnesses will say that they were reasonably convinced that you can be that they could be killed, then that would be enough. That would be enough according to you, as far as I understand current U.S.
Totally
law.
unintentional. Let's say it's totally unintentional. You're speeding. Is it okay to kill somebody if the only way to stop them from speeding is to kill them?
No, because I don't think. Well, I guess it depends on where they're speeding, right? If they're going 90 by a kindergarten, yeah, I think so. But if they're going 15 over, if they're going, if they're going, yes,
come on.
If you're going 90 next to a kindergarten, what the fuck?
No, that is not reason to shoot somebody.
What all the kids are inside
on the accelerator.
Yeah, well, if the kids are obviously prime, if the kids are inside and it's the weekend, then like the risk of harm and the risk of death is not there.
Then none of the kids are on the street. They're outside, but none of the kids are on the street.
Okay, Prime. What if they're crossing the street? Then can you shoot the guy going 90?
Yeah, if it's getting straight.
Great. Okay. So how the fuck do you calculate a percentage? How do you calculate the percentage chance this guy was going to run?
It's just normal expected value calculation.
I'll make it really easy. I'll make it really easy. I'll make it super easy. I will make it super easy.
Guys.
Everyone shut up. Everyone shut up.
Please.
Finish this point.
How can you calculate whether or not there was more than a 50% chance that this guy was going to run somebody over once he slammed on the gas when the cops were pointing a gun at him?
You take a look at other high-speed chases. You take a look at
every high-speed chase is different.
The existing, yes, they're different. That's how percentage chances work. Thank you, Lactoid. The whole point is you take a look at the statistical norms given the information you have. And if the statistical norm comes out, it's a very yes, you can absolutely do that. It's super easy. It's
calculating the exact population density in an area, calculating the exact.
If you don't know, then you assume agnosticism. If you don't know, then you assume agnosticism.
Absolutely.
Just assume the average.
Holy fuck! I just want to say I'll make it super easy.
Hey, I'm gonna decide who talks next. Not you guys. I will. Okay. Corey, I had wanted to say something, so I want to get Corey, Casimir, Spartacus, Chinchilla. At some point, I want to jump in because I actually want to tackle Doobie's framing head on. So I definitely want to do that. But Corey, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just a couple of comments and like a follow up with Lactite. Comment number one, of like, yeah, I think you might be reading tea leaves, Lactoid, or trying to extract it, but I understand why. And also now the sort of meta commentary, I find it interesting that during the previous discussion, Casimir will reject hypotheticals, saying like you're holding me hostage, but will put forth some of the most like insane, wild hypotheticals. But to follow up with Lactoid, so this might just be where the divergence comes from. If we're able to like run the survey, okay, of like trying to find.
I didn't reject anything. I answered even the grossest hypothetical.
No,
how disgusting of a lie. I hope you're just mistaken. You're not lying about me. Synth used the most disgusting hypothetical and was like, "I'll buy that bullet. I'll say you can rape a murderer."
No. So you
Come
never said.
on.
Wait, okay. I will gladly retract it. Casimir, you never said Casimir, that you're holding me hostage. Those words never came out of your house. Or like this is like a hostage situation. You accepted all. If we go back, I would love to do like a watch along with you. You accepted all hypotheticals. Do you want to make that claim?
Okay. What was the hypothetical? Maybe I forgot.
He doesn't want to make the claim.
Listen,
do you want to survey the people here on the panel? How many do you think will be on your side?
If I dodged the hypothetical and it was the reality, I'm sorry. Well, remind me after this debate what it was, and I'll give you an answer.
Okay, sure.
I don't think you can accuse Casimir of dodging hypotheticals here.
I think you can.
I think that, so he answered mine. He's bitten.
He bit the bullet on some of mine, but there was one where he said you're holding me hostage and didn't engage the hypothetical.
No. Oh yes. Okay, fine. I want yes. But I did answer it eventually. But I told that the Doobie, when he takes an issue and brings in like a heinous issue where the reason why you don't do a certain thing is because it will damage you. Like same with synth example. There's certain things that you don't do, not because they should be illegal, but because they would be like self-harmful. So they're not a proper way to punish someone by damaging yourself. But there's no like legal sense where it's wrong, because you should have morals that are on top of your ethics. But specifically here, synth is almost, I think I don't disagree with his answer, but he's asking the right question. When do you know? I don't think you can calculate, but what they do in court is they determine what was the communication in the case. If you believe from that video that the pressing down the accelerator in the previous context of his activities was demonstrating that he's willing to threaten, like immediately threaten another person's life, then he can be killed. But
what they do in court
and the threat.
What they do in court is they put it up to the reasonable person's standard. Would a reasonable person in this situation believe that this would cause great or deadly harm? Would a reasonable person believe that? And that's essentially what it comes down to. 50%. If you believe 51% that this would cause that a reasonable person would find 51% this would be great or deadly harm, then it is action. If you find underneath 50% that a reasonable person would find this to be great or deadly harm, then it is no action. But it's a reasonable person standard.
It's not percent. It's yes or no. Do you understand that?
Can I say something about?
But it's also based off percentages because a reasonable person is different among jurors.
No,
can I say something?
You don't say percentage. You say yes or no.
No, you say more probable than not is the phrase used. More probable than not.
No, not reasonable person standard. No,
more probable than not means 51%.
No, you're hopelessly confused. So reasonable person standard is different than like preponderance of the evidence. Are you like what are you like a reasonable person?
We're not saying they're the same standard. What? I agree. They're different standards.
Right. European so why planning. The fuck are you? Like,
no, reasonable person has nothing to do with it. We're not saying preponderance.
I want to say something about European planning. Okay.
Wait, Chinchilla.
Can I say something? No, I want to say
please.
No,
I'm attacking what he's saying currently.
No, I want to say something about European planning.
You have a silly European voice. Let Spartacus be American.
No, shut the fuck up. No.
This is so. It's about European planning.
I was talking. Everyone stop talking. Thank you. All right. I had already made a list, right? And Casimir, you've been talking a lot, so I'm guessing you've gotten your point in. It was Sproutacus' turn, then it was going to be Chinchilla. So
Yeah. So I want to say
it is
something
the
about your.
I said Sproutacus' turn, and then I
He
said
said my
Sproutacus.
turn.
I said Sproutacus, then Chinchilla. That's what I
I
said.
thought he was done. I thought he was
I-
done.
I'm
He
letting-
said he
I'm
was
letting-
done.
I'm not
letting-
done. Thank
I'm letting
you.
him finish, and then Chinchilla, it'll be next.
It's not the preponderance of the evidence, but however, the reasonable person standard is more likely than not. Would the reasonable person be more likely than not to do this? It's not would the reasonable person do this, because there's no factual standard as to whether the reasonable person would do this or not. Would the reasonable person be more likely to do this than not? It's not a preponderance of the evidence. A preponderance of the evidence would be taking in the evidence and saying that the evidence weighs more towards this than that. The reasonable person standard is the reasonable person would lean more towards this than that.
Right. So they don't,
Okay.
they don't
You
calculate.
calculate
I
mens
can
rea.
explain. They don't calculate any kind of percentage.
Oh, I thought it was next.
Oh my.
Hello.
Go
I
ahead,
thought
brother. Go ahead, brother.
Okay,
I thought it was
Chinchilla.
next.
Chinchilla.
Yeah.
All right.
So when we talk about like European planning and urban planning and that kind of stuff, it's like extremely dangerous if you drive extremely hard in like a neighborhood because of the fact that you only drive like 50 miles an hour for the Americans, like that kind of stuff. And if you drive less than that in a neighborhood, you either are a predator that's looking for children, or if you are driving more than that, you're probably trying to hit the children. So, like, it's so fucked up that you guys are saying well, no, he's just driving more or less, whatever. You know, it's like if you know your European cities, if you know your European neighborhoods. These things are like vastly different than like American neighborhoods. I've been in America as well, so
He's
I've,
European, by the way.
Sorry.
Oh,
No,
never
no,
mind.
go ahead.
Don't worry about it.
Keep going. Keep going.
So I've been in America as well. I have American family.
America
So,
has
yeah.
European areas where you will have to drive the same way, and you would have the same risk of feeding.
You have some cities. You have some cities in Europe that are like America, but most of them aren't because they don't get bombed in the World War II. And those.
What are you? Sorry, what spell did you just cast?
Because
No,
they don't
it's a-
get bombed in World War II.
Yeah, because generally, like if you have like cities that are being rebuilt after World War II, they are modeling after American cities because
Chinchilla,
they
do you have,
really
in
like
Europe-
America.
In Europlan, do you have the distinction between mens rea, which is like the mind
mind.
of the person, the intent, and the actus rea, which is the lawyery term for the actual physical thing of the crime? Now, the actual physical thing is preponderance of evidence. Like, was there an actual like person driven over by another person in the car?
That's
Then
not the
you look
preponderance
at
of
the
the
evidence. And Sproutacus is correctly identifying the principle for if you can demonstrate if what are you laughing at? Actually provide them with the correct answer if you think it's funny, Lactoid.
Well, you don't.
You're the lawyer here.
Wait. Okay. Stop. Everyone's trying to explain it. I tried to explain it, but like.
The preponderance of evidence is 50% or more of the evidence is aiming towards this direction, so it's
No,
more likely than not that
Sproutacus.
this crime
We're
happened.
talking about his intent. If he intends to kill
Then
somebody,
evidence doesn't
and
come into
he-
doesn't come into
Yes,
fact
it
when you talk about
doesn't.
intent.
It is if a person observes an intent to kill,
For
don't
actus
observe
reus,
it.
it's not
observes the
preponderance of evidence, it's
capability
reasonable
to
doubt.
kill, then even though no murder has committed, he can kill the killer preemptively. Yes.
Again, that's the reasonable doubt standard.
There
Yeah,
is
the
no
actus reus is
fact of
reasonable doubt.
killing yet.
Sorry,
There's
sorry.
no
We're
fact
moving
of
far away
killing.
from the
No,
points
not
that I
for
want to
self-defense.
discuss. Lactoid, like, give us the law, and then we're gonna move on because I don't want
Okay,
to do this.
I'll,
all day.
No.
there's a bunch of different shit going on. Okay, so when you're finding somebody guilty of doing a crime, the standard is you got to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they did it, and depending on the crime, that they intended to do it. Right now, if it's a civil trial, it's the preponderance of the evidence. Is it 50% plus one or lower? Right, that depends. Right, and every single state has their own standard as to what percentage.
To be
of
fair,
fault,
Lactoid,
et
we
cetera, et cetera.
generally
There was no
And
crime
then
here,
and
right?
then and then the last thing here, the reasonable person is a legal fiction. It has nothing to do with like percentages. Whenever anybody brings up like the reasonable person standard, all they're saying is like, what would a reasonable person do in this situation? If a reasonable person is like just seeing a car swerving around pedestrians, putting them in danger, swerving up to you, stopping, and then they slam on the gas again. Is a reasonable person going to think does this person pose a threat to innocence? If the answer is yes, then you can use force to stop them.
Holy shit! No, that is absolutely not true.
Okay, hold on.
Civil laws are not.
Don't
care.
About France. I mean,
everyone.
Civil laws is not.
I don't care. What? I don't care. I don't want to make this stuff.
You don't care about the law, then? Okay.
Law thing. Previously,
maybe French law sucks. I don't know.
We're
it
moving
sucks
on
because civil laws cannot be
this.
like this.
Now. I'm talking. Knock it off. Thank you. So I want to refocus this on the riots themselves, and rather than like the individual legal minutia of this particular case. So Doobie, are you still there, friend? Yeah. So your framing, and if I get it wrong, please correct me, is that the problem with these riots is that they are created by left-wing agitators who saw this case and took advantage of it, even if the details of this case are not exactly as they might seem at first glance. Is that your framing?
Sort of. I think that there's it's not just like left-wing agitators. I think it's the media too, right? So for example, with what's the name, Jacob Blake, thinking of the United States, where the guy got shot in the back by the police. When that was initially reported, it was just a video of the cop shooting the guy in the back as he's trying to get into his car, and all the media ran with, police shoot a black man in the back, right, and paralyze him, right? So and that gets picked up, sent all over Twitter and shit like that, and people generated a narrative that says, hey, these white cops shot a guy in the back as he was trying to walking away from them, running away from them, right? Not okay, right? But they don't bother to look. Most people don't bother to look into the context of that whole situation. The media doesn't present the context up front, right? You have to dig to find it. So it allows a race issue to be generated where there isn't actually a race issue, where it's actually something much more simple than white cops hate black people and want to kill them.
Okay. And thank you, DV, because you reminded me of the super chat we got a little while back, but you guys were being annoying. Thank you, Fondue, once again. Shout out to Fondue out there. He's been using the super chat system. Really do appreciate that. Who said, should the police have shot Jacob Blake? And Doobie has answered that question. Okay, yeah.
Should have aimed for the head. I don't like rapists. Okay, rapists are bad.
Fondue. Thank you so much for the kindness. And guys, again, if you want to have a question read out on the show, head over to our YouTube and use the super chat system. We'd love to hear what you have to say. All right, so I want to tackle this head on. I'm trying to refocus the conversation and on the riots themselves. So I think that there is certainly something to it, but Doobie was saying, and I think Lactoid maybe previously as well, saying that the framing of these things is wrong, and that how the media presents some of these situations, not all of them, but some of these situations might lead people to an incorrect conclusion. Okay, but as the spark for this riot, and this is where I thought Tiberius was going to go, but he seemed to swerve a bit there. But the reason why these riots happen is because there was something real underlying it, right? So they can look at this story and look at it at first glance and surmise that this is what's been happening to me. That I've been suffering under the police. The police have been police our area in a bigoted manner, with increased force. Right, I've seen it in my own eyes. People are hurt, maimed, killed. So that's what sparks it, right? There is an underlying if this was if those people had been treated fairly by the police the entire time, and feel like they have a voice in their society to make changes when things go wrong, then they don't riot. Then it just doesn't happen, period. But because of these underlying tensions, even if this particular person was no angel, it still touches on the heart of an injustice that they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I understand where you're coming from, but I think that here in the U.S. too, by the way, I think a lot of that perception is generated by this sort of like sensationalism, right? But I remember Prime you used to say, I'm sure you still say this sometimes, but I've heard you say that police are like executing black people in the street. They go out with the intent to like kill a black person. Like I think that kind of thinking kind of pushes this perception in the minds of black people who haven't actually dealt with that in their life. And they've never run into a racist cop before. But if you have all these people saying, hey, the cops want to kill you, when you go outside, the cops are going to see you and they're going to look for a reason to pull you over and kill you. I think that's going to generate this kind of like bad feeling toward police, right? This fear of police. So it's like a vicious cycle, right? So you're feeding the perception, and that perception leads to the blow up when there's like a match struck with this story, or it could have been some other story.
Okay, so
There's studies
my
on this, by
response.
the way.
Okay, and I'd like to engage with that. The thing is, black people have been saying the same thing for years, for decades, right? Even before this current media environment, which has been more willing to talk about these things. Before cell phone cameras were capturing this, before all of that, before Rodney King, black people were talking about the suffering they had at the hands of the police.
Yeah, I'm not saying the police were never racist. I'm not saying that
Okay.
black people have never like dealt with like disproportionate violence from police. Okay, of course not. I'm
I-
saying that.
can
I'm saying that today, people living today. I think that when you need to go back to like Rodney King or the civil rights movement to like justify this perception today, I think there's a problem. I think today most black people probably haven't dealt with racist police in their lives. Right? Most black people's interactions with racist police are gonna be what they saw on the news, right? And the news said this guy was a racist, or my friend said, oh yeah, the cop pulled him over because he's black. But actually, your friend was probably speeding. Your friend probably ran a red light or something, right? And that's why he was pulled over. But because he has this perception, it's been built into him from when he was a child. The police hate him because he's black. He's gonna associate any action taken against him by the police with his blackness, right? So it just becomes like a vicious cycle of like this racist demon, imaginary racist demon, just being fed by everything.
Can I say something?
Please.
I'll ask one last thing, then sure, we'll open it up to everyone else.
Yeah, thank you.
To say. So DB, what is your prescription? Should I'm sure you want more accurate reporting, right? Maybe like take a beat before you report something. Fair enough, right? But when there are these actions, do you not want the media to do like heavy reporting on that? Like, hey, this is the thing. A black man seemingly shot unwarranted by the police. Should that not happen?
I think that France is a little bit ahead of us in this, right? Where it's actually like well, I don't know about ahead of us. Maybe if this was reported without taking making the race a part of it, unless there's like a specific reason to make the race a part of it, right? So rather than a black man shot by police, it's man shot by the police. Or so unless there's a reason to think that he was shot because he's black, I don't think his race should be injected into this, because that to me just stinks of race hustling. Right? They're trying to make a race issue out of nothing, because that gets more clicks and it drives the controversy.
Real quick, I do have evidence that demonstrably shows that like they do, like if the victim of a shooting is black and if the shooter is white, they like the media will name the races much faster, like much earlier in the article, like within the first paragraph, way more often than if it's the alternative.
Yeah, sure. When it comes to France, it has like this whole thing about like colorblindness and that kind of stuff, and it has like detrimental impacts on France because of the fact that those people are not really integrated within their own society, which is like an issue overall. And that's why I said like to Doobie, like France is not ahead because of the fact that they don't have like black people or like Arab people or like Algerians or whatever their skin color is. If I come there, I'm not French, right? If I get a passport, I'm not French. I have a Jewish French that lives in France, he will never become French, right?
Okay, but that's not an issue with like colorblindness. That's an issue with people valuing attaching race to their ethnicity, right? Attaching their identity to their prior ethnicity. Like a lot of these people are immigrants, and they'd call themselves like Ethiopians or whatever the fuck. But actually, they were born in France. They're French, but they call themselves whatever ethnicity their grandparents were. It doesn't make any sense, and that's actually an issue that the left favors. They are okay. They prefer people to identify with their ancestors' ethnicity. Like so for me, Prime always calls me Mexican because my great grandparents immigrated from Mexico. It's true that they immigrated from Mexico. I was born in fucking California. I'm American, right? So saying that I'm Mexican because associating me with that other nationality, that other ethnicity, because I'm brown, is actually kind of a type of racism that the left pushes all the fucking time.
If you were to say that racism or whatever, but I just want to say that when it comes to France, they have to abolish that whole colorblindness. Because of the fact that that's bad, and that might be coming from like a leftist perspective, and then I'm against it. I'm not.
What do you mean by colorblindness? Yeah, because isn't it just the case that they don't report like differences in like crime statistics by race?
Yeah, you cannot report on like any different like skin color or whatever, and even race, ethnicity, all that stuff. So you cannot do.
But if those things aren't relevant, why should they report on them?
Sorry?
If those things aren't relevant to what's going on, why should they be reported on?
Well, I think it's relevant because you should be able to.
It doesn't matter if you think it's relevant or not.
Why it's relevant?
Like, no. There's guys, I'm bullying myself in on this one. All right, first, when it comes to colorblindness versus like the hypersensitivity, I get where both sides are. I'm not convinced if either one is working out very well.
Yeah,
France being the great exception of this, or example of this. So let me get back into where Doobie's at, because I want to pick a fight with you for a second. I totally get where you are with the feedback loop. I do, but when it comes down to it, I'm gonna just have to give it to my black brothers and sisters here that most of the time when their voice comes out and they say, hey, as a community, we have this problem. Whenever the white folks have had to deal with that problem 10, 20, 30 years down the line, they've been pretty fucking spot on. The war on drugs was a fucking disaster, and we didn't listen until it actually started kicking us in the teeth. When it came to single... Nah, dude, come on, dude. We have not taken
billions of dollars
seriously.
Was devoted to helping communities that were like destroyed by drug addiction before the whites.
And how much have we pushed decriminalization in the last 10 years versus the last 30?
That's a cultural shift. That's nothing to do with white people. That's a
cultural shift. White people actually know somebody in their community or their family who's had to deal with fucking drugs.
They're not talking about decriminalizing fucking painkillers, right? They're talking about decriminalizing weed right now. Right, weed and like shrooms, right? And this is a result of a cultural shift that has been decades in the making. That comes from Hollywood, right? That comes from Hollywood pushing that it's okay to smoke weed and it's cool to smoke weed.
All right,
that's not because white people were were doing drugs all of a sudden.
Okay, look, I admit there's some level of okay. First of all, I do think some of that was that white people started doing drugs that were seen as black drugs, right? White people later got into coke and heroin and shit, right? Like, and then
who's legalizing crack?
But nothing crack.
Legalizing coke.
So look, all I'm saying here is this, right? Like, there's a level where I think people should trust the community. If you think I'm full of shit, fine. I don't really care. This is more for the audience, I guess. I think there's a point where you can listen to a community and you go, hey, look, what's your track record here? Whenever we've had these conversations, how well are you guys stacking up versus like what you said being true? I think, the white community's actually got a pretty fucking decent track record.
Bullshit.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not with all of their leaders. I don't agree with them on a number of things.
We're their leaders.
But yeah, like most of their grievances, when we had to face those grievances, we kind of came to the same conclusion on.
Yeah, there's a correlation that people are missing here that's very important. And this is something you might not pick up if you were grown up in America. Okay, in America, one of the reasons why the black community is distinct is because through the process of transatlantic slave trade, people did lose their culture, did absorb a different culture, and this is including the black and in part the white community in America, have certain issues with relating to their heritage culture for various reasons, right? Historical reasons of the way USA developed. In as far as I understand in Europe, it's not the case. Your ethnicity highly correlates and is highly cherished. The people who come from any part of Northern Africa, I believe if you start asking them, they will say that we value our identity and we identify as, being from our country of origin. We want to maintain our tradition, maintain our various attitudes, and we want to be accepted as such in that society. So the problem is you can't track that. How do you track that? Well, a correlation is by their actual origin, if you track the ethnicity. It's not that you can't convert them to French citizens. It's that the process doesn't exist in society anymore. Now, this actually did occur in the United States at one point. There was if you search in Wikipedia, there's something called Americanization. In brackets, it says immigration, as the immigration article for Americanization. And that was a societal and, in part, governmental pressure to make people conform to American values when they came in. The government was unfriendly towards other languages. It was unfriendly towards teaching children languages that are not English and stuff like that. Some of those policies were quite vicious. Now, when we abolish all of those policies and start bringing in people without having, some forced or societally pushed conversion, and we've pulled back on both. We pulled back on the evil, first involuntary coercive method of Americanization, but we also pulled back in terms of society on socially enforced and socially osmosis coerced one, the voluntary interaction one. Because we abolished both, and in France they also did so, they don't have the tools to integrate. So in 1993, there was an interview with the Moroccan, king at the time. I think
Is there a pause button?
I'm not sure. And he says, listen, those people will never integrate my subjects. It's a mistake you're making. You won't be able to integrate them. Now, the reason it's not like it's impossible to integrate them, but the French don't have the ideology to even believe that it's possible, that it can be done. They're not going to do it coercively, and they're not going to do it societally. And so they end up with this halfway road where everybody hates each other.
Let's go to Ty.
I didn't hear a single word. I already know it's all bullshit.
Ty.
Yeah, it was all bullshit.
It's your low IQ.
I actually don't have anything at the moment. I must have got slipped on the list.
Oh, sorry. Lactwit and then Chinchilla.
This is great. I'm going to address something that you said, Ty, which is you said
Let's
at some point. Yeah, I'm going to disagree. At some point, you said you just got to trust a community. The problem is we have demonstrable evidence, and I posted it, that people are just wrong about their perceptions here, right? So there was a survey done on perceptions of violence against unarmed black men, and people are way off. Half of all, at least, and this is in America. This is not in France. I don't know how much the numbers differ in France, right? But in America, over half of all people who report to be very liberal estimate that over 1,000 unarmed black men were killed in 2019. The actual number was between 12 to 27, depending on what stat sheet you go off of.
Can I just tell you, I outright am going to agree with the stats. So this is my problem. Okay, I totally get where you're hey, when you look at this community, or you talk to anybody, they're when it looks at these stats versus what they perceive, and you map that out, they're never close. The problem is this with everything. Humans are 99% wrong about everything all the fucking time, right? So, my whole thing here is that, all right, let's remove an order of magnitude here. We assume that everyone is at least going to be a little off in their perception, okay? How does their actions reflect that? I'm looking at this American family that we got here, and don't get me wrong, it's got some problems. We had to have some chats, but we're not that bad. This is working better than what it should. And when it comes down to
it won't work
the
for
point
long.
that Lactwit is getting to is that people tend to overestimate how bad things are because of this kind of journalistic malpractice. And because people like you will hear the horror stories of people that heard third hand that their friend was beat by a cop for being black, and will disagree with it because they're black. Because you want to be a good ally.
No, dude, you know me that I'm not a cuck. All right, when it comes down
you sounded
to
like a cuck a bit ago.
I'm sure I did to you.
I deserve an answer.
I want to say
I'm
one
gonna
thing.
agree with black
I
brothers and
know you
sisters who
said.
think the cops want to execute them because they're black. Like, it's fucking bullshit.
Well, yeah, and I know you said you agree with all the stats, but I just want to say a couple of them real quick because this is pretty wild. Like, very liberal respondents estimate that about 60% of everyone killed by the cops in 2019, unarmed people, were black. The actual number is 24.9, but conservatives estimate it to be 37.8, which means that conservatives are overestimating the amount of black people killed by like a significant margin. Right? Everybody is. And the question is, like, if everybody's like mistaken, do you think there might be like a reason when we also have evidence that like the media highly emphasizes these cases?
Look, I totally get where the media is pushing it, and it's done for politics. Let's not act like this is rocket science here. It's nefarious as fuck, right? I'm 100% with you on this one. There is a level, and I would call it almost faith, that it's like, hey, I've seen the actions from like as a community versus the everyday individual. I'm like, I don't think these are bad folks. I think they're more trustworthy than they're not. Like, yeah, I will trust this community when they say that, hey, this is how we feel, and we need to have a chat about it. It's like, I'm not going to always agree with them, like straight up, but like, yeah, I'm there.
Okay.
What I like this direction.
Let's go to Chinchilla and Corey.
Yeah, so when the 1900s came around, like basically like most European countries were like, well, we gotta turn into something like democratic in 1940s, like after 1940s, that kind of stuff, or like 48. They thought like we need to be more democratic, but then in solution of that, they thought like we need to isolate it, like our community. So they made like more like Catholic, Protestant, more liberal minded, and even like socialists had their own columns in society. After like World War II, they abolished those columns. They were like, we're gonna abolish those columns, we're gonna be like one society. But we had these new people coming in who were Muslims, and because we had this old system of like building columns up, which so we build up like this Muslim kernel, and we gave them money for their own organizations and that kind of stuff, because we did that for Protestants, Catholics, and free-minded people as well. So the fact that we kind of isolated those people, right, was also our own fault, because we invited like far-right groups from Turkey, from Morocco, into the Netherlands to say like, oh, well, you can have your own community, and therefore those people isolated them. But if you look in more recent years, you can see like clearly that those people are like integrating in society because of those like institutions don't get like any funding anymore. So that's my response to Kashmir, because Kashmir is like, oh, well, yeah, they are isolating, they are not integrated. They are willing to integrate, but the problem is that we built this fifth column, or whatever you want to fucking call it, into a society, and that was kind of an issue within like Dutch politics, and you can see it basically around like whole of Europe.
I don't think you're integrated even among the French right now. You have like you have
the Dutch aren't integrated amongst the French. That's right.
Yeah, I'm saying that when you have like you had other major protests. You had the Yellow Vest protests, where it was right-wing populists combined with left-wing anarchists and like anti-government people who were protesting, and the police
are those not French people? Those are considered French. 100% considered French.
They consider
the Yellow Vest
people.
Yeah, 100%.
The point where they are disintegrated.
What are you talking about?
Don't believe. Oh, I'll explain. They don't believe in the same social contract. They don't believe in the same social contract that is proposed by Macron.
That's
And
the
I'm
French.
saying that-
That's the French social construct. The French social construct is more about having protests and therefore achieving stuff, and that's the
killing
ritual that
innocents
French.
and stealing from innocence. Yes.
Sure, whatever. Like the French people have like a rich history of like fucking putting people through the guillotine and that kind of stuff.
A
And
rich
it's like, yeah, and it's like basically like again the first thing that I said when I opened this debate, like about
What's a
this
French
topic,
person?
I said they had a 2-week protest about changing the package of the camembert, which is like a cheese. They locked off all the highways and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, you
they
said it. What's a
had, like,
French
a rich-
person?
All right.
I think it's
Chinchilla,
fair to
please let me
interrupt
fight you
and
on this.
say, what is a French person? You keep pointing to them. Now, I know it's a French person because I grew up as a Russian in St. Petersburg, and our elites, our nobility in the Middle Ages and beyond, started speaking French. Russians
Oh.
were Francophiles up until like Napoleon invaded, and even
Well,
then,
I'm related to the Dutch. I'm related to the Dutch royalty, so I have more
Oh my
French
God.
descendants.
But do
My
you
Okay,
realize
ancestors
shut the
were
fuck
coal
up.
miners,
Jesus
so I know
Christ.
all about.
This is dumb.
Let
Chinchilla,
Leclerc speak.
stop.
Let Leclerc point.
Stop
Let
feeding
Leclerc
the.
speak.
Okay.
Stop
Okay,
feeding the
okay,
beast.
okay.
What is a French
Please.
person?
I'm just
What's
Okay,
the
sure.
value of the church that's
And
been
Tiberius.
We'll
Tiberius,
figure that
please.
out. We'll figure that out later. Hold on.
You
we
fed the
gotta go
beast, dude.
We gotta go to Corey. He's been
Tiberius.
waiting patient, and then we'll
doesn't
go
want
to
to
Oh.
answer though. That's tragic.
Corey.
French.
Yeah, well, new Matt Walsh documentary. What is a French person? Can't wait for that. Yeah, so to rewind
Can you
a little
answer?
bit. To rewind a little bit, because something, at least to my eye, really interesting occurred when Lactoid was engaging with Tiberius, where I think you like mentioned specifically, like your words were like, people are wrong about their perceptions. So rewinding a little bit, when you were going back, kind of like describing, the rioters and like left-wing agitation, social justice warriors, and like you were trying to use data when engaging with Tiberius. So then my question becomes, is like, do you have any data where, so I'll try to like distill it down or come up with an example that maybe will illuminate the divide between us, where it's like, okay, if you're a betting person or like we're both betting persons, I would personally take a small bet of like, hey, if we surveyed all of the rioters, if that's even possible, I'm like, what is the likelihood that 50.1% either identify as left-leaning or social justice warriors? I would take a small bet, but I probably wouldn't, I certainly would not bet all of my belongings or all of my assets. Would you take that bet?
Yeah,
95%.
Well, I would take
Okay.
I would take the bet. So I don't. Yeah, it's a fair point, but like at the same time, the difference is when we're the only distinction could be between like the left, like the super hardcore left wingers, and then like perhaps people who are completely politically ambivalent and they just want to burn shit, right? I agree that could be a substantial part of the rioters.
Who are also leftists, by the way.
They
It's
might
the
be.
same type of ideology.
Right.
Fascism
Don't-
and
no,
communism
do not let
are on the same
Casimir-
side of the
not
spectrum.
let
It may be, right? But
They self-report as
but it's
social
like-
justice warriors or left-leaning.
I would
matter.
argue that over 50%. It seems like the riots are directly
Okay.
motivated by some kind of left wing interest, right? The right wing party is like supporting the police countermeasures against the rioters. Marine Le Pen is like ranting every day now about how like horrible the rioters are or the riots, and then like you have the right wing French people are like, this is ridiculous. We're gonna vote for Le Pen now. It's really like the people who are out burning shit. Can you explain to me, Corey? It would be fucking crazy if they did a study on them, on like the political ideology of these rioters, and they found that like even 20% of them were like far right French people. That wouldn't make any sense.
That's why I said like I would take a small bet. Like I can understand and see where you're coming from. Like I would probably take like a small bet, but that's probably where the divide is. Like would I go so far as like everything that I have? No, but if you want to take that bet, like I'm just trying to illustrate like the divide, as in like but I think it's also fair to say you're not going off of any hard data. Like you want to use hard data with engaging with Tiberius, and you're really adamant about that, and people wrong about their perceptions, but you appear to be going by perceptions here alone.
Well, but the difference is like one is about like it's a prediction of people's political identity that we currently have no stats on. because it's happening now, right? We don't have a stat. I'm not sure they're out there with the burning cars.
Yeah,
So do you
sure.
identify as a left wing? They're not doing that, right? So we don't have that data at the moment. But like, I think it's a reasonable prediction, opening the possibility that in some crazy fucking 1 in a million universe, I could be wrong, that a significant majority of the people that are out rioting against the police because they're angry about a black man being killed perhaps have more left-wing sympathies. I don't know if that's a crazy estimation, but
could it not be the case that like they are simply like apolitical? I think us, in our Terminally Online like political think, like we are dividing people very cleanly. But could they not just be apolitical and be reacting to their impressions of society?
Yeah, there could be a significant portion that is, but again, like the actual trigger and the catalyst for this was left-wing agitation, in the sense of you have like hardcore left-wingers that are going out and doing the riots, and then you have people who are naturally inclined to want to riot anyway, right? Because there's like a whole psychology behind this shit. They're obviously going to join in. This is the case with every single fucking riot, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know what the actual split is, but like
there's groupthink too.
Yeah, there's groupthink and everything, but like this is a left-wing oriented riot. This is not a right-wing oriented riot.
So I can grant you that, like, let's say, from what I understand, definitely not an expert on French media, but I can totally grant you and understand, like, there probably is an element in terms of, like, the narrative that's formed, or maybe the narrative formed, like, by the left-wing media might be contributing to promoting riots. But, like, yeah, in terms of, like, the political affiliations of the actual rioters, like, that is, like, the divide of, like, I probably would take that.
Look, if the data comes out that I'm wrong, I will say, you know what? My perceptions were incorrect, just like Americans are totally wrong about police killing unarmed black men.
No, Corey makes like a really
the same
interesting
thing. Like that's why I said, like, I'm willing to come to your side.
Corey, you make it like a really interesting point because of the fact that, like, within France, like, it's definitely not necessarily like politically like activated and that kind of stuff. And Prime was actually talking about that it's like might be like some people that are being apolitical. But it's just because of the fact that you have certain people that are not being accepted in society because they are like of another skin color and that kind of stuff. And that would translate internationally to like egalitarian stuff, and that would be considered left. So if that answers your question, Corey, I hope that helps.
I do want to get to Ty, who's been waiting a long time. I'll say that, in the words of the great philosopher Bender, there's no justice like mob justice, and like we should consider that when we need retribution delivered. Tiberius, and then Casimir. I do want to get Doobie at the end, because Doobie had a lot of interesting things to say, and we can get to hear too much of it.
All right, so pushing back on Chinchilla just a bit. When it comes to largely what you said about, at least I think we're going to agree that like assimilation in Europe has slowed down, right? People are not like becoming French in the way that they used to be.
Never was a thing, to be fair.
Okay, well then we'll unpack that later. Well, all I'm going to go is that if I think it was, at least to some degree, like literally the Occitans eventually became French, right? So my point here is this. One of the biggest things that the Europeans have torn down since 45 is overwhelmingly their sense of nationalism. And I think that we're seeing the fallout from that in the fact that, like, you have the Scotland movement, the Catalonia movement, a lot of these separatist movements, because people are going back to their more regional heritages in Europe. I do think the social fabric is kind of breaking down, which is where, on one hand, you have people wanting to, like,
Can I interject something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like honestly, like I appreciate your talk on this, but I think that this national movement of like people that want to be like recognized as their own people is like basically like enlightened because of the fact that they are part of the European Union. So now maybe they can be their own people. So Scottish people.
Literally about to say that.
Yeah, like, so Scottish people, Catalonian, and that is like a push or pull because of the fact if Scottish people were to become independent within the European Union and became part of the European Union, Spain would have a problem, right? So there you go.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and so it's just weird because on like one hand, you guys are kind of literally doing exactly what the Americans did literally 150 years ago, to where
No.
we shut up.
Kinda.
All right, we literally got to the point where it's like, hey, we were the states, and then we kind of came together for a more common heritage. We went from these United States to the United States. It literally kind of seems like Europe is trying to do that now. I don't know if you're going to succeed because of the language barrier, but on a massive level, on one hand, you have like a pan-European identity under the European Union forming. At the same time, you have the English and the Scots not agreeing with each other anymore.
Well,
it's
they are
very
not
weird.
part of the European Union anymore. But that being said, like
They're still
you
European.
you brought up a great question, and overall, I don't have the answer to that. Like the European Union will probably be like a loose like confederation for the common like 50 decades or something, because of the fact that we don't have like a common heritage, we don't have a common culture, we don't have a common language. Because and we are not like Americans, so we are not like one nation. So and that's why you're right. So that's what I give you.
Let's go to Casimir, and then I do want to try Doopy.
I'm just I'm speechless. We're talking
For the
about
first
things
time
that
fucking
are
ever, but go ahead.
yeah, because we're talking about like irrelevant things, and I just want to ignore all of them and refocus back to what people are. I think Chinchilla did answer partially, but what Chinchilla proposed earlier was centralization. The failure that's occurring in France right now is due to centralization, and the proposal, the reason the solution will be proposed by the French government is going to be further centralization. They would say something like, well, no, because of these riots, because police and military were probably held back, which nobody will discover, then we're going to have to like invest more into enforcement in society.
So did you listen to what I said? Did you listen to what I said? Because I actually like mentioned like centralization is a big part of French politics because of the fact that
you want to centralize into the European Union, correct?
No, I'm talking about like French.
No, you said
centralization.
that if you had uniform laws of immigration, then you would solve this. If you'd had like the entire United,
I didn't say that either. I didn't say that either. I didn't say that either.
That was
You're
part
stupid.
of your opener. Okay,
No.
maybe I misunderstood your opener.
Yeah, you misunderstood me.
Let me ask you.
Ask me what? Okay, ask me what I think.
Do you believe that we should decentralize France and allow people to have, in some areas, let's say in a city in France where they vote to have firearms open carry?
Why are you about firearms, certainly? What's this about?
A question, just answer it. Don't be lazy.
I think French.
The answer is magic, by the way. It's a magic hypothetical.
France overall, with their presidential system, should be more decentralized because of the fact that their centralized system invokes a lot of like demonstrations. And I think it would be better for the French to be more decentralized. And why you ask me about firearms, I don't know why. I don't fucking care about firearms. But
just answer.
Go ahead.
And Corey, it's not magic to legalize firearms in France. Like, do you believe it's magic? It's like literally impossible.
I think it's a holding me hostage hypothetical.
For people to just go on the market and buy a gun.
Does someone have some Ritalin?
Can you don't insult me. Just answer. It's a very simple question. For Corey this time, do you believe it's magical to allow people to right of self-defense using firearms?
You're like holding me hostage, and the answer is like that is pretty. I will use pretty much your words, or the summation of your words.
Do you believe I'm smearing you with this question?
I want to move on. I don't want to do a whole thing on this, right? Like,
yeah, of course, because I'm not allowed to pressure them on the fact that they don't answer any questions.
Yeah, sure. Hold on.
They just want to answer
this.
You're silly goose.
This is a tangent to a tangent. So if you have like something more direct, do you want to discuss? Let's do that rather than like
more direct.
Go ahead.
The failure is not based on ethnicity coming in. It's the fact that the social contract was written that we will defend France against invaders by having a military and having a government. And now the government is saying that if the invaders come unarmed as migrants and openly tell you that they're there to conquer, even if they did that, even if you find a particular person who does that, and you interview them, and one individual says, I am here to conquer France, and I'm going to do so by coming in and changing your local laws, by outbreeding you, or whatever they want. If they want to do that, there is nothing in France that will prevent them from doing so, because that's part of the liberal way of doing things. If they come in and they want to change the constitution and make France completely non-France, they're allowed to do so according to the liberal order, and that's perfectly fine. But that contract has to be executed by the police, and they're not doing even their basic, most fundamental level of care, which is protecting people against violence. And so the real answer to this is to decentralize, is to allow people to say, whose house was just burned, to say, if I'm building a new home, then a firearm will be part of it. So that next time looters show up, I have a weapon with a high-capacity magazine, and I can defend myself against the looters.
I think it's funny.
I think
it's funny that
sorry, we have limited amount of time. I do want to move on. Casimir got his point out. He wants to decentralize. He wants to arm the populace.
I support that
and that'd
too.
be the response. Okay, fair enough. I do want to move on. Doobie, did you have more to say? Because I thought you had a lot of really interesting points.
Well, I think this is interesting because I feel like in some ways the European media or journalistic outlets have unlocked a new ability, right? Which is the ability to race bait, right? Now that they have 2% of Black people in their country due to refugees and migrants and whatnot, now they can play the race card all the time and get clicks. And it seems like they're starting to do that, right? This isn't the only case. This France thing is the big one that everybody's talking about. But there are other cases in Europe where a Black person has been killed or an Arab person has been killed by the police, and that has been immediately politicized, right? And used to push a certain narrative, used to push a certain political viewpoint, right? So I'm really curious to see how this plays out. In this with the riots, but also long term as Europe, which is constantly you hear Europeans talk all the time about how racist the United States is, right? I have all these race issues in the US, but most of these countries are 90% white people, right? So I'm curious to see once they actually get some diversity of skin color in their country, how long does that moral high ground hold up? How long do they get to see that they're less racist in the United States?
Well, I mean, the Greeks are putting in neo-Nazis to run.
Can I actually respond to that?
That was really interesting during the refugee crisis, right? How immediately you had Nazi groups popping up all over the fucking Europe and getting elected in places.
The biggest party in Germany.
The Greeks and the Italians.
I'm actually I'm kind of with Doobie here because of the fact that if Belgian people come here, they will be racist to Belgian people. Belgian people don't look the same as me, you know. So I would actually I would agree with you, to be overall it's a massive problem overall. White people within the US, they see white people, right? Within Europe, I can see Polish people, I can see German people, I can see all the different people, and that proposes a major issue, major hurdle for us, as the European Union. But we are trying to challenge that. And we're trying to conquer that, and you are bringing up a fine point that the racism within Europe is pretty massive, and
again, so you're talking about Polish people and Belgian people. These are still primarily white people. They're white Europeans, right?
Yeah, that's what you think. But that's not what Dutch people think.
Please. So that's the reality, okay? If we were to look up the demographic breakdown of Belgium, right, it's going to be mostly white, the vast majority white, by a lot. Yeah. So France stopped taking doing a census where they would take race into account or whatever in the 70s. But the estimates are that right now they have 5% Africans in France, 5 fucking percent. Right, and this suddenly, there's a massive race issue in France. So that's what I'm talking about. So yeah, it's true. Yeah, you can tell. I guess you can tell white Europeans apart somehow. I fucking can't, but whatever. Maybe you can.
Yeah.
But I think that when you get people in the country who are like just visibly like their skin is a different color, right? Like so immediately you're gonna know they're part of some other group, right? That's moved into your country, right? Or moved into your country and now they're saying that they're part of your country too. I think that is gonna set off a ton of fucking like racism from the left and the right in Europe.
To be fair,
it's 10%, not
like
5.
I wanna say something on this because of the fact that to be like from the 17 million people that we have here within the Netherlands, 2 million are not white. They are either Arab or they are black. So like your percentage is like kind of off. But that
you said 70%. Hold on, 70 million.
No. From the 17 million people,
13%.
17.
From the 17 million people,
2 million. So 2 million of the 17 million are not white.
I'm not white.
What percent is that?
That's 10% from North Africa.
I'm not going to calculate that for you. You can do the math on your own. But that
there's
like
here. I'll show you a source. It's 10% from North Africa, 3% who are, I guess, ethnically estimated to be like of African descent, black skin color. That's what it says, but it doesn't matter. It's not the ethnicity that matters. It's the actual like behavior and the culture and how children are raised in the family, and that can only change by some kind of a process of integration. If Chinchilla is correct, then it was in the United States, but he says it wasn't even there in France. So now you have to answer: what is a French person? Give it a proper definition, a heuristic where you can identify a culture, you can identify its cultural values, and then you have to find some kind of a way that is liberal enough for you to force those values on other people. How do you
never identify?
I think that's stupid.
Lactoid, you want to say something?
I just wanted to I don't know. When you say that it's 5%, I mean, this is going to sound like splitting hairs, but it's over 7%, and the fact that it's over 7% is interesting. Because, like in America, the black population is 13%. So you have
there you go.
It's already more than half, and we're talking about like in the past. I mean, how many decades, right? In comparison, I mean, there's a pretty large population comparative to the French population, and it is happening quicker.
Okay, so you were saying that this is like an assimilation issue, right? They're coming in too quickly, and because they're coming in so quickly, they're not assimilating, and there's like cultural.
Yeah, I'm not making that could be the case. I'm not necessarily when I say that I'm not necessarily making that point. What the point I'm trying to make is when you say, well, like I wonder how they're going to behave, like because like an insignificant percentage of the country is black. I wonder how like they'll think about this once like they get up there in numbers. But like they kind of already are up there in numbers, right? Over 7%.
Hold on, what percent of the United States isn't white? Like it's much more than that 13% or 15%.
I put over
right?
I put over 7% is black. Like and then you want to take out like Arabs and like other like.
Yeah, like I'm talking about I'm talking about like when when a large percentage of the country
we don't know they don't
no
collect
longer
the data.
Is no longer illegal. That's just in France. I'm talking about like all of Europe, right?
It depends. Like if you're talking about
it's not the same across Europe.
Yeah, like if you're talking about like Holland, he gave us 12%. If you're talking like Sweden, it's like 10. If you're talking like Spain, it's like 40, right? It's just
and those are not comparable even by the percentages because again, you have to start speaking about the specific thing. Let's say you asked Lactoid just now, Dubi. You said, well, does Lactoid believe that it's like a rate of integration that's too fast? How can something be too fast to something that doesn't exist? Like integration, what is the Institute of Integration? Now, a proper answer might be the free market is integration, meaning if you can disassociate from a person, and then in order to associate with you, let's say to be patronized by or like to be accepted by your business, to be allowed to enter into your restaurant, then you can actually have a dress code, and you can have like requirements for behavior.
Can you not be recognized as Flemish?
Social requirements on other people. But if you don't have any of these voluntary interactions,
it doesn't sound
everybody
Flemish.
must accept everybody by law.
So can you not pass
into
the Netherlands as Flemish, but not as Wallonian? Is that like I've been told that's the difference? Like the Flemish will be accepted within within Holland, but the Flems or the Wallonians won't?
No. For the record,
Dodging the
like
question.
within the Netherlands, like Belgians are Belgians, Dutch people are Dutch, not Hollandish or Holland. Holland doesn't exist in the sense that Holland is
saying they
only
do.
like Holland
Look, I'm
is
sorry.
only
They're
two.
like, look, on behalf of the
Holland's-
Anglos, we fucked up the language.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I
Thank you
asked you
very
again.
much.
This is irrelevant. What is the mechanism of
We don't
integration?
care anymore. Shut the fuck up, dude.
Tiberius,
This is the
and
point
I
of the
have like a
discussion.
quick question.
Dodging to
Oh
have
my
your-
God!
your
Oh,
talk.
hold on.
I'm on point. They're not.
Okay, sure.
I asked a
Chinchilla.
question on point. How do you integrate? Show me the mechanism. Where was it?
Yeah,
How does it
no.
work? Do you
Okay.
coerce
Integrate by
people
muting
force?
you.
Do you do it voluntarily? How do you do it?
I just can't do it
Okay.
anymore.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
core
Sorry.
of the
Go ahead,
debate.
Chinchilla.
So generally, when I look to America, I really like their way of assimilating people. I really like that because they love their flag, they love their people, and they have their own like stuff that they do. When it comes to Europe, we don't necessarily have that, and we basically like make our states based on our ethnicity, aka ethno states, which is like a detriment for us overall because of the fact that even with Dutch, we have like millions of like foreigners, right, with like Dutch passports, being Dutch citizens living here. And I overall think that's a bad thing. And when it comes to the Flemish people, like they cannot come here. Like they don't have the Belgian passport. They can come here because of the fact they have a European passport. That's all I can say. Like Tiberius, but yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna leave it at that. We're gonna move on to our open lock on panel. So stick around for that. We have more content for you. So if you wanted to join the conversation, I know some people did. Stick around. We'll have a discussion after this where you staying at home, in the audience can join in. So we're not done. I'm going to give an outro to all these great individuals. And again, if you just found this channel, hit that follow button on Twitch and the subscribe button on YouTube. And consider supporting us. We haven't gotten any support today, so other than our boy Fondue or person Fondue, helping us with the super chat. But if you could sub on Twitch, if you give bits or give subs, or if you be so kind as to use your Amazon Prime says Prime Gaming, that would be great. That allows me to keep doing this for you all. So invest in this community so I can invest in more of this content for you. All right, so we're gonna head out. But before I forget, because sometimes I do this, I'll have like a plan in my head because I'm gonna say something when I'm like outroing someone. And sometimes it just slips my mind when I finally get to them. So I'm gonna put Doobie first, right? Hold on, Lactoid, don't get mad, okay? Like you're still valuable, all right? I don't want you.
He's
to
fuming. I can see.
I won the coin
Yeah.
toss. I just want to point that out, but sure.
I mean, he's
Rock, paper,
only
scissors.
valuable because he's Canadian. So
To my friend Doobie, so I don't know how you actually feel about this, but I'm gonna say this anyway. I want to make it sure that everyone understands that my friend Doobie is American. All right. Now I've called him Mexican in the past, only to get under his skin because I thought it was funny. But like I don't know if you might actually be sore about that. But Doobie is like one of the most American people here. Like seriously, like he's like started like from poor family and like started his own business and then like is now a wealthy individual through his own merit, like literally the American dream right there. So I want to put that out there that even though I've teased my friend Doobie in the past, that he is fully American. And very much brown. So Doobie, sorry. Seriously, if you felt badly about it, then I apologize.
Yeah, fuck you, Prime.
Okay.
No, okay. To be clear, like I'm not upset about it or anything. Like it doesn't bother me, right? But not from you. But there have been other people in the past, like leftists, where it's like an irritation just because I think there's a problem when you think American and then what pops up into your brain is a white guy, right? And when you see a person who's not white, right? The issue is the thing comes up is, oh, where's he from? Or where are you from? like you're American. They're probably from fucking down the street, right? So like, I think that's I when I was like a teenager, I read a speech by I think it was like Teddy Roosevelt about like hyphenated Americans and how we needed to move away from like hyphenated Americanism, and it really stuck with me. Right, so like I've tried to like live my life that way, where I was born here. These are the people that I'm part of. I don't give a fuck what your skin color is or what your ancestry is. Like you are part of the country, so you are you're part of me.
Fair enough. Right? Really, American spirit right there. Shout out to my man Doobie. Oh, and who you can find him on the Politics Discord
Yeah,
server.
politics server.
Doobie
It's a
in
terrible
chat.
time, but you're invited.
The link is in chat there. I'll even throw it in the the YouTube chat, so all those people can enjoy whatever they find over there. But thank you so much. All right, let's go to my friend Lactoid. Lactoid, again, you're not number 2 in my heart. Just to put that out there. So go ahead, friend.
I appreciate that. I actually am going to say 2 quick things. The first thing, well, 3. First thing I'm going to say is, although I still absolutely disagree with Synth at the beginning. I did get a little bit heated. I apologize for that. I like to keep a very cool demeanor, but I didn't. So sorry about that. The second thing I want to say is that when it comes to France, I think there's certain cultural attitudes that probably are good to be changed. I do think that there are things that are changing in France that I don't agree with. But just recently, a Pew Research survey came out, and only 47% of French people think that cheating is wrong. This is the lowest in all of Europe by a significant margin. Everyone else is like, yeah, cheating's wrong. And then the French are just like, I don't really know. That's ridiculous.
This of the French culture.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's a horrible element.
You racist.
I really,
Just
really,
kidding.
really hope the North Africans change that, because the information shows that the North Africans are right on this issue when you look at the study. So good for them. Change that first, please.
The study is false.
If you like what I
Just kidding.
if you like what I had to say, you can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. And yeah, I appreciate Prime for having me on, and I appreciate all of you for talking to me.
Yeah, everyone, seriously, hit up our friend Lactoid. Got the link in the chat. And I'm not being paid to say this now, but you should check out his Discord. You should expose yourself to people who disagree, like I try to do here. It expands my mind, like Lactoid and Casimir, Scott, and others who are on this, and Doobie. Doobie does it all the time. They change my way of thinking. They expand my thought because I'm in my own bubble. And they pierce that bubble very effectively all the goddamn time, annoyingly all the time. But it's very useful. So check out Lactoid's Twitch channel there in the chat, and check out his Discord. Okay. Let's go to our friend Casimir. Casimir, thank you also for coming in and fighting the good fight of Ancapistan. We need more warriors there.
It is mutual. When people actually engage with points, I do believe that I grow from the experience, and I get to hear possibly things that I didn't predict, and then I have to think. Maybe even like a very basic, is it really the case? Sometimes make you think, well, how do I actually justify it? And that's how I've arrived at ANCAP, by rigorously asking, how do I justify anything? Now, we have a problem here in this debate, and this is why people sort of refuse to engage. And the solutions that you're currently being offered, if you're living in France and you sympathize with the French people, or you want to avoid their faith, you have these 2 solutions. They're both wrong. So there is the quote-unquote so-called right-wing solution of establishing some kind of a right-wing authoritarian state that will start taking people by some background and evicting them all out of the country. And you believe that this is possible within Europe. Well, I don't think it is. I don't think it was a good idea at any point. And I don't think you have I don't think there's the will or desire to do something so evil. But also, the other solution that's proposed to you is become an even bigger slave, become even more dependent on Big Daddy government, become even more communist, as Corey Campbell wants you to become, and abandon the thing that would actually allow you to defend your heritage in the proper way, which is by defending and by excluding people who did not contribute to its construction. So the proper way to defend the church from being burned down is a man and women standing around that church during a riot with high capacity automatic weapons. And the heavier the guns that they can bring, the better in that situation. And so that is the actual solution. And this is the solution that was taken away from you by the Rousseau idea, the egalitarian idea of social contract. Well, the social contract is not written, and nobody actually wants to enforce it. In fact, I believe, it's just a hypothetical, that the reason why Macron is able to celebrate during the absolute ruination of France is because he knows that you will accept his solution rather than the other socialist solution. And he knows you consider ANCAP crazy. So maybe you are the crazy one.
Thank you so much for all of that. Because this was such a crazy debate. Like, I didn't actually get to put forward something else I really want to talk about. Is like the browning of Europe, right? It's like a racist trope that is put out there, but like I think it's like a great political project. So I actually really want to engage in that.
They
Not
are
like
not
the browning of like the
Europe.
entire world.
They are browning Europe in the sense of that they are making them Arabs with like Turkish people and like whatever, and that's not really considered like brown for you guys. So
yeah, but I'm just saying that like that's like a thing that you hear on the far right.
Because they are fucking stupid.
I know.
Yeah, but
They're not
the
wrong,
far right
though.
are
Like, it
stupid,
is
but there's none of them allowed on panels to actually debate you on that point, and like to force you to answer the question. And maybe the far right has an answer of who they believe is French, but you're right; they're both socialists, so by default, their solutions are wrong.
Okay. So anyway, but I would like to engage that question. We gotta do that one day. The browning of Europe. What do you guys think about that?
You can do it on Odyssey or Rumble, not on Twitch.
Oh boy. Let's go to our friend Corey.
I would love to do my part to fuck a brown girl and to make like a brown family. I don't care, So for me, I don't care.
We love to hear it. Integration's beautiful. Corey's an example of that. Corey, part Asian. So thank you for being here, friend, and adding diversity to the panel. I got enough of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge visible minority on display. But I also probably owe you an apology, I guess, for the first open discussion and starting that. All that stuff that transpired, which at least for my perspective, totally interesting, and I was entertained. Hopefully, everyone else does. But that was a wild ride that I'm glad I guess I was a part of. To wrap up the second topic, try to be brief. There is a legitimate debate around immigration and or how to handle it, but it's obviously nuanced. Even like Quebec, which has some roots, some ties with France, which Quebec, very overall left-leaning province, but very often the label of xenophobic gets placed on Quebec due to certain things like immigration or its approach to immigration, etc., etc. It's a much more nuanced conversation. But that's pretty much where I'm at. Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure. You can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/CoreyCampbell84. I'm a biochemist. I cover science and research, like that MDMA case study that resulted in that derailment that occurred here. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. It's Corey Campbell, and Doobie, Chinchilla, Tiberius, Spartacus, Casimir, and Lactoid. Always a pleasure, and love you, Prime.
Thank you, friend. Spartacus, we're happy to have your triumphant return here. We needed a patriot here, and you filled that role. As always, thanks for being around.
Hey, not a problem. I enjoy coming and having conversations with people. It was great. It was good having fun conversations. Destroying ANCAPs. It's always a fun time. No, I enjoyed it, Prime, and I'm happy to come back anytime you need a patriot. A good patriot to come on and defend the good old United States of America.
All right, yeah. No one else will. No one else is willing to fly our colors. So
Hey, at least not properly, right, Prime? At least not properly.
No, others will like shame us, right? With filthy flags, but we got a real hero here who'd do better than that. All right, so let's go. Let's go to our friend Tiberius. Tiberius, thank you so much. Who has the bisexual colors? Again, also not
Always.
a real patriot.
I don't know if I'm not a real patriot. I like my country quite a bit, but when it comes,
playing, of course.
Why do you tease me? Anyway, what was it? We were talking about is the general like browning of Europe a problem, right? Not really. Ethnicities change over time. Either they incorporate new people and new ideas, or they just stagnate and die. Look at the most successful civilizations in history. People like Rome. They literally continually bring people into a greater whole. They change with it, and it takes them over 1,000 years before they come out of prominence.
Tiberius, this is a shout out for yourself.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, what? We didn't have closing arguments? What the fuck did I just hear from like all these people for like 20 minutes? Like, fuck off with that. No. Anyway, making the whole with me is like
okay, whatever.
Yeah, it is making this whole for me is just I think this is not a problem. It's going to have some stress with it, but it's not going to be a problem. Anyway, Tiberius D, if you like what I had to say, definitely check me out. I love you, Chinchilla. I'm sorry that you can't stand my voice anymore, but now you can have it.
Chinchilla is a great person, a great member of this community. Really, really kind person. Has always been trying to support us. Glad to see him again after a very long time. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, personally, like I've been absent for like a couple of months and that kind of stuff, and I will definitely like resubscribe to you, Prime, after this, because I'm not even subscribed to you, and that's like a terrible sin. Like if you are a Christian and you are watching this for free, right? You basically are committing a sin because of the fact that this is not free content, because of this person needs to put out that content, and we are all participating in that content. So for all the Christians out there, like subscribe, but also for the non-Christians out there, also subscribe, because he is putting a lot of work in it. That being said, like I'm Chinchilla, and I wanna start to stream on a competitive platform, unfortunately, because of the fact that I didn't get banned, but I feel like if I air my grievances with the Twitch community and the Twitch people, like I might get banned because of the fact that I'm white. That's just the reason, you know. No, just kidding. But there you go. So I've put my link in the chat, and you can do it with that. And that being said, like I love the people on the panel today, and they were very gracious, including Kashmir. So yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you so much, friend. So we are going to move on to open walk on panel. Before we do that, though, I remember what I was going to say. Lactoid, do you agree that like not subbing to this channel would be theft? Like,
I don't know if I should agree to that.
Bro, it is. It probably is, right?
I mean, like, there's work that goes into it, right? So
Yeah.
it would be theft.
they're stealing-
It'd
They're
be
stealing Prime's
arguably
work.
exploitation.
You should ask Syntat. You should ask Syntat. Like honestly, like Syntat would
They're
be
stealing Prime's work.
Yeah.
So no one here like who lives by their values would like be a part of this community and not like substitute. I'm just putting that out there. Like I'm just assuming that
morally, yes. Legally, it's information, therefore not scarce. Therefore, you're not stealing.
Tax.
Okay.
So to Lactoid, taxation is theft, but not this.
Not this.
I said it's exploitation. That
By the way, it's very important.
take what you
Chinchilla is
get.
wrong.
So you're
Yes,
fine with exploiting
Chinchilla, you
people.
have to get banned.
I was
Promise
gifted
you get
subs.
banned
Does
from
that count?
Twitch and put it on your resume. You will
It
forever
wasn't my
regret
name.
not being able to say I got banned from Twitch, Chinchilla.
Okay,
I don't got a ban from Twitch, but
So-
what do you think? What do
Oh
you
my
think
god,
about
that's such
like
a tall.
Amazon?
Like you guys argue amongst yourselves. There's a long tail to this. All right, so anyway, and Ty is tired. He looks like a sleepy little bear, right? Like you see him, you see. Like,
He always looks like that. He always looks like that. Let's be fair.
I'm literally like forgetting to unmute myself. You all getting me so fucking tired. What the
Okay.
hell? All right. Like I had to smoke a bowl twice because of this fucking panel. Why are you doing this to me?
That's a
That
potentially
helped
bad
you with your
sign or a good
tiredness?
sign.
Let's go. I don't know why that would keep him awake. Yeah. But anyway,
That sounds like it'd make you more sleepy.
I had to stay awake, so I took some melatonin, just to sharpen.
No. I'm saying I'm tired. I'm tired because you all are mentally fucking draining. Like what the hell?
Okay,
Show-
all right, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much. All right,
Bye.
we're gonna
Take
move on
care.
to a walk on panel. Thanks everyone for being here. And you're welcome to join us, but if not, that's okay. Thanks for your time, your energy, your knowledge, and your passion with my community. I know they appreciate you so much as I do. Have a good one. Bye.
Oh, it's
Take
a
care, buddy.
pleasure.
Oh my god. Yeah.
I still have to yell at Chinchilla.
Famous
Oh my
last
God,
words.
the soft. Oh my god. That we heard before he left.
Can you blame him? What the hell was this panel?
It was a
Chinchilla.
wild ride. Definitely
Yeah.
a wild ride.
Did he just leave? I'm gonna kick his ass if he did.
Yeah.
What a bastard.
Although I want to say
there he is.
Tiberius's eyes got so fucking big when I called Kashmir a lying bag of shit.
I was just like, dude. Yeah. It's like I would like to formally issue a declaration of war on Kashmir. I'm like, okay, I guess that's this panel today. Better go open a bowl. Sprout.
I didn't
love you.
feel attacked.
That's what
so I
started.
was like,
That's what started his first bowl.
You should have. Good God, that was such a shot across the bow. Like, goddamn.
Yeah,
Sprout.
and Tiberius, I
Across the
sent.
bow.
over a nothing burger though, so I didn't feel like responding to
Right
it.
No,
shot.
like there was a hostility, and I don't know if I want who I want to blame for it because, like, Synth was spicy. What was it? Like Sprout just went fucking like straight into it.
No, I think
Damn.
I identified what Doobie was doing, and it's Synth's like very common trick. It's an effective rhetoric trick. It's like the Russian government actually did that to its political opponents. So what they would do is they would do a nightly segment where they were unmasking pedophiles live on Russian TV, right?
Uh-huh.
And then the segment right afterwards on the TV or like right before would be about political dissidents, would show their faces on. They didn't need to actually call the dissidents pedos. They just had their segments right next to each other. That's all you have to do. That's why there's like Godwin's fallacy in debates, where you just bring up Hitler, colors the entire question the wrong way.
That's something Hitler would say, Casimir. So you
Yeah,
better watch
exactly.
yourself.
Oh, you're agreeing with Hitler. It's like,
I mean,
I
Hitler
don't
also.
buy those tricks.
I mean, Hitler
Well,
also
if I
drank
answer
water,
them, you have to,
so
like-
I'm quite suspicious.
All right, Chinchilla. Before I bounce out of here, first and foremost, we gotta cover some bases. Number one, how is Europe doing? Because we haven't talked in a bit, and like I'm hearing some shit. What do you got?
Europe overall is doing fine, and you don't have to worry about anything. These French protests, they're usual, in the sense of like they're usual. But they are longer, but they always been that. And when it comes to the rest of Europe overall, they don't protest. It's like a different culture, and with Germany it's like we can become part of the union and therefore we can have our say. Within the Netherlands it's like we can be part of the union, but we still need to protest. So there are
All right.
gradients, but overall it's we are doing fine, man.
Okay, let me recontextualize that real quick for you, right? We have the Italian elections. We've had whatever
you mean
bullshit
the-
is going on in Hungary. We've had Poland. We've had AFD and De Groen, now the third and fourth biggest parties in Germany. Why are the psychos running the insane asylum? Don't get me wrong, we Americans are doing the same thing here.
Hungarians
like-
are wrong for other reasons, but their psychosis, quote unquote, actually works. They built a wall, and it fucking worked. In fact, I use it as a meme. There's like a graph of illegal migration, and then there's the exact date where the wall is built, and then it becomes like
Where?
almost zero.
Okay, so for the record, like when it comes to the Italians, they have like a lot of issues when it comes to immigrations because of the fact that you have a key when you divide like the immigrants within Europe.
Yeah, but North Italians don't even like South Italians. Like literally, the north part of the country is like legit racist to the south part of the country.
That's not a real movement anymore. But
it's not a movement, but it's like a.
It was a thing. It was a thing like 20 years ago, or like 10 years ago.
It's real if people identify with it, right? If people say, if you ask a local and say, "Do you identify as a hater of South of Italy?" and they say yes, and it's a real thing.
Well, like I'm just like, even for what I'm hearing, that hasn't changed, and that's been one of the big fuels.
Well, that has kind of changed that overall like thing, because of the fact that they had like a plan to split like Northern Italian and Southern Italian, but that didn't pack out. And if you really want to question about that stuff, you should like notify like Ted, Ted, the historian guy, because he really did his own research within that.
Oh, don't get me wrong.
Tiberius is asking you. He's giving
the German guy.
Ted. Yeah, I know who Ted is. I miss him. I need to reach out. What I'm getting at though is like forget the political part. Like the issue is that, like, most Southern Italians, when they go north of Rome, they start running into problems really quickly to where they're like, "You're not Italian." He's like, "Yeah, I am. I'm from Salerno."
That's not true. That's not true. Southern Italians are being considered more Italian than Northern Italians. So that's not true.
It's not even. They have a long history of being divided between cities, and I've seen multiple like people reporting on travel where they talk to locals, like those types of interviews.
That's kind of true.
And people would say, we don't hate other ethnicities, but we do sort of dislike cities, and the cities have associated sports teams, so it's actually enhanced. But here's the thing: the reason why Tiberius is talking to you about this is because there's a clear popular demand among some people to be able to preserve their local culture. It might be north versus south. It might be just a particular city, or it might be like a whole gradient of this, where the north and south will unite against somebody bringing Moroccan values. And so
Moroccan values? What the fuck are you talking about, my friend?
I'm saying.
Why are you talking about Moroccan values within Italy? Italy has 0.5% Moroccans or something like that.
I'm giving a hypothetical.
Something like that. What the fuck are you talking about?
Distinct from Italians that will try to arrive in their country, they will be.
And they uprise and they take over the government, and they will be suppressing all the Italians. All the white people were suppressed by brown people.
Y'all have a good one.
Take care, Ty.
Take care. I'm saying that it's there's going to be a popular demand to the degree that Italy is being changed by people believed to be outsiders. There's going to be counter demand to not have that change, to have the outsiders change instead of Italians. Now,
I think
the current way to satisfy that demand by people is to vote for far right politicians.
Overall, I think I kind of agree with you in the sense that, like, overall, like the Italian identity is evolving, like, because of the fact that they didn't have like ethnic states for like 100 years. So that they were like the last ethno state to develop. But that being said, like, they will develop themselves in something that's more inclusive, to include like people that are like them. So when it comes to the Netherlands, basically they include like a lot of Indonesian people within the Netherlands. So why do they do that? Because of the fact that Indonesian people have like a history of colonialism and that kind of stuff. So even though we did a lot of bad stuff over there, those people identify with our culture, right?
Can you name a country that's
Take care, Lactoid.
Take care.
2 hours of sleep, so I gotta fucking go.
Yeah.
Take care. We'll talk later.
Lactoid, are you going?
Yeah, I gotta bounce.
Yeah,
Oh, Lectoid, thank you very much for participating. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it as always. Well, how about just while I say my goodbye? Shit, I left before I get the stream room. Ah, shit. It's okay. Really appreciate you guys as always. If you like the stream, please consider giving me a follow. I appreciate all of your support as always. You guys are fantastic. We just passed 300 followers not too long ago. I am still feeling just super fucking grateful for that. Yeah, you guys are awesome. So thank you for being engaging in the chat. Thank you for everything. I'm going to be going ahead and raiding on out into Prime. And yeah, see you guys next time. We got content coming for sure every week. Good shit. Yeah, don't worry. I'm gonna fucking go to sleep. See, when I get cranky when I don't sleep enough. That's the problem. Anyway, yeah, good shit. Bye.
He's a pain in the ass, but he is a good dude mainly. It's pretty much just a good way of summing up.